school district board and administration have done our part in attempting to right the financial situation of Erie's Public Schools.
This is just some of the major items. 3 buildings were closed. We had cut more than 200 full-time positions. Central administration was cut in half, and during the last several years, our employees have had little to no wage increases.
But why does our state perpetuate a system that spends the most money on the easiest to educate students and the least on the most difficult students to educate?
Our median household income at $33,000 a year is 485th out of 500 school districts. That's the bottom 3%. Our economically disadvantaged, we're 12th in the state, top 3%. Our English language learners, again, top 3. Same with the charter, and our special ed is above average. So given that, you would think that our per pupil funding would be somewhere near the top or at least in the middle. We're at the bottom.
To have us singled out as the only state in red, the only one with more than a 20% gap between the funding for its wealthiest and poorest school districts is an embarrassment. Our neighborhoods, our city is different as we start school this year than it was last year at the same time. Many of the same things are happening. Many of the same challenges face our students and their families. But as you're too painfully aware, these scenes are what we dealt with all summer. And as I shared at those professional development sessions, it's this photograph in particular that, for me, kind of captured the essence of the problem. Those are our children. But that's my kid's school up on the slide over there on the side there. That's where my son Jack goes to school. But if he could go to a school that had a nice building, and like the one next to it at Northeast, why wouldn't I do that? I don't do it because I believe in the work that's happening in
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending our May school board meeting. We are now in session. I'd like a reading of the meeting notice, please.
Technical School will meet in regular session on Wednesday, May 25th, 2016 in the auditorium at East High School, 1001 Atkins Street at 6 o'clock p.m. by request of the President, Robert S. Casillo.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Harkins?
Here.
Mrs. McNair?
Here.
Mr. Katrunker?
Here.
Ms. Shenley?
Here.
Mr. Spable?
Here.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Here. Mr. Brzezinski?
Here.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Here.
Mr. Casillo?
Here. Thank you. We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Caitlin Campbell, a fifth grade student from Grover Cleveland Elementary School, introduced by Miss Michelle Firelli, principal, followed by a moment of silence for Walter Love Jr., a retired school security police officer who passed away on April 15th, 2016. Angeline Caleo, retired custodian, passed away on April 25th, 2016. Ms. Esther Durara, a retired teacher assistant who passed away on the 25th of April. Bruno Caserta, a retired teacher, passed away on April 30th. And Christine Eminoff, a retired teacher assistant who passed away May 17th. So, Ms. Firelli. Apparently, Ms. Firelli is not here. Good evening, Mr. Lawrence.
Good evening. My name is Chip Lewis. I'm the assistant principal at Grover Cleveland. And I'm very proud to introduce Caitlin Campbell, who's representing Grover Cleveland, fifth grade student. Caitlin's birthday is November 4th. Her parents are Amanda and Brad Campbell. I'm very proud because I taught Brad Campbell back at the old Wayne Middle School in the mid-90s. Super kid then, super kid now. I'm still going to call him a kid. Caitlin has a 3-year-old little brother named Brady. What does Caitlin enjoy about school? She looks forward every morning to learning new things and continue to go above and beyond in her work so that it impresses her teachers. Her favorite subject is math. She's an honor student, been an honor student all of her years at Grover. She's been 4 quarters, all A's and B's. She's also an NEHS member, National Elementary Honor Society. She's a tutor for our younger Cougars, and she's also a Cleveland Cat. Her personal interest, she loves to go to her hip hop classes and also enjoys playing softball during the summer. In fact, when we're done here, she has a game that she's going to attend, so she might have to leave a little bit early. I'm very proud of that. Plans for the future, Caitlin would really like to pursue her dream of working as a doctor of psychology. Caitlin Campbell.
Would y'all please rise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please continue to stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. teacher at Northwest Pennsylvania Collegiate Academy, who will introduce the representatives from the FIRST Robotics, Team 291 CIA, Creativity in Action.
Good evening, school board, the city of Erie. We are Team 291, the CIA, Creativity in Action. We're going to stand for a second. We are your Erie City Robotics team, and we function because of your sponsorship, and we'd like to first thank you for that. I'd like to introduce Jonah Britton, who is going to tell you about his experience as a freshman, and Alex Zaricki, who will also tell you his experience as a senior.
Hello, school board. I'm Jonah. I'm a freshman at Collegiate Academy, and I joined the robotics team because I thought it would give me a great opportunity to learn about the machining and programming and stuff that I want to do in science and math. And it has done just that. It's influenced me greatly, and I can see the opportunities that it can give me to college. So thank you for letting us have this opportunity.
Hello, school board. My name is Alex Zaricki. As a senior and a member of this team for 4 years now, I've had more time to reflect on what it has offered to me. So often, from an outsider's perspective, I think that this team is just boiled down to the after-school engineering club, but I have learned a lot more than practical skills in building robots. I feel like growing up, I did not have as many opportunities as most of my peers. I grew up on the east side, just a couple blocks from here. I wasn't able to be in clubs or other after-school activities. I'd never been to any kind of summer camp, and when I got to high school, I had to give up my commitment to sports. And I think that the unfortunate reality is that we all live in very different worlds. But when I joined FIRST Robotics my freshman year, I became part of a much larger world. My team was a service to me because it taught me skills, and it showed me wisdom, and it shaped me into an adult. And I've served my team by being a guide for those around me and contributing my knowledge to a higher goal. This two-way relationship is a very important value to all of us. It's what we call community. So I want to thank you for allowing me to be part of that. Thank you.
Dr. Badams, Jonah is going to present you with what's called our judge's book, and it also has letters of thank you from the team itself. This year was my first year with the robotics team, and I'll be honest with you, I was kind of hesitant, thinking what this was going to be. And I can't tell you how wildly impressed I was with what these kids do. There's probably this misnomer that robotics is like Nerd Central at Collegiate Academy Nerd High. And the thing that's really not understood is that robotics is so much more than a robot. Robotics is about community service. Robotics is about learning what it is to value each other. Robotics is learning about marketing and presentation. It is the team sport that encompasses everything that you want kids to learn. It is an amazing experience, and we want to say thank you for giving us that opportunity. This past year, we won an entrepreneurship award when we were in Chicago at our competition there. And that award is really stating, you are a great team. Not that our robot was great, but we were a great team. And that's a statement about what the school district does to help us, and what the mentors from GE and from Erie School District do to teach these kids not just about robots, but about life and about civility and about being part of a team. So thank you very much, because these are the kids, and I'm not putting down other kids in the school district by any means when I say this, but as we look at these are kids that are doing STEM for fun. And these are the kids that are going to end up being the entrepreneurs, the small business owners, the people that create the startups that have the opportunity of saving Erie, because we know where we're going. These are the kids that have that opportunity. By giving this to them, by believing in them, you're saying Erie cares, and therefore they will care about Erie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. I now have the distinct honor to present a certificate of appreciation to Danielle Resort, a student representative to the board for April and May of 2016. And Danielle is a student also at the Northwest Pennsylvania Collegiate Academy. Danielle? If you'd like to say a word or two, Danielle, you're welcome to. Push the little red button on the speaker.
Good evening, everyone. Recently, there has been a lot of talk of closing 4 major high schools in the area: Strong Vincent, Central Tech, East, and lastly, my high school, Collegiate Academy. To hear there is a possibility of closing down Collegiate, the place I have resided these last 4 years, is the most troubling and unnerving news I've ever received. And many of you would be wondering, why would a senior, someone who is completely unaffected by the situation, care so much about the closing of local area high schools? But that's just the thing. They aren't discussing the choice to close schools. They are discussing the choice to close the homes of high school students across the district. They're weighing the choice of closing my home. What many of us have failed to realize, however, is Dr. Badams and the rest of the school board are not trying to shut down the schools, but come up with a viable solution to the problem. According to Section 1607 of the Pennsylvania Public School Code, Pennsylvania public school districts are not required to provide education beyond grade 8. However, the underlying goal of high school is to provide students with a basic education that will serve as a platform to launch themselves into their futures, platforms that students need today. As we all know, the closing of these schools would be a complete travesty and disservice to the students and faculty of the Erie School District. So that is why we must stand together as a unit, as a district, and as a community to make our voices heard. Unity refers to the condition or state of being one. A rope is strong because its threads are united. We cannot break unless the threads are separated. That is why I believe we must stand with Dr. Badams and the school board, not go against them. Yes, there has been talk of eliminating extracurriculars and closing local area high schools, but that is the last thing that anyone in the district wants. That is why I am calling upon the school board, the student body, and the community to work together to come up with a solution to find equity among the schools in our area, and to come up with a solution to propel us into the future of our community. Again, I would like to thank Dr. Badams and the rest of the school board for this amazing opportunity. Please accept this message as not only mine, but that of the student body of Erie's Public Schools.
In Polish, that's Wieczorek.
With that, we're going to adjourn the meeting. It's pretty much concluded everything we were going to talk about tonight. Danielle, that was very eloquent. Thank you. That is very much appreciated. And on behalf of the board, I certainly have had a very good experience working with you. And I invite you at some time to become a school board member. We can certainly use someone of your caliber. At this time, I would like to announce that the Board of Directors had met in executive session on Wednesday, May 18th in Conference Room 3 of the Dr. James E. Barker Leadership Center from 8:05 p.m. until 10:17 p.m. regarding personnel and legal advisement. And then this evening, Wednesday, May 25th, at the library of East High School here from 5:02 to 5:44, again, regarding legal advisement. We have moved one or two things around in our normal agenda, and because this, obviously by size, has a commonality about it, and I think we all understand what that is. We would like to have the report of the superintendent, Dr. Badams, speak in behalf of the administration and the board regarding our situation as we are today. And our Chief Financial Officer, Brian Polito, also assist in the presentation, so that we all have a good, solid understanding of what is going on with the Erie Public Schools. So with this, I'll turn it over to Dr. Badams.
Thank you, Mr. Casillo. And Danielle, thank you. You stole my words. I couldn't ask for a better, more eloquent speech, and you've really captured the essence of what we're hoping to do here today. I want to thank all of you for attending the meeting tonight. To have this many concerned citizens at a board meeting is unprecedented for this district, certainly since I've been here. And we probably haven't had this many people come out since Academy was originally closed, although I'd have to turn to John Harkins to verify that. You're all here probably with a mixture of confusion, anger, certainly with a great deal of concern. And my hope is that in the next 15, 20 minutes, we'll be able to educate everyone so you all understand exactly what the purpose of this meeting is and what the board's being asked to consider tonight. And I hope also to clarify what this meeting is not. And I'll start there. The board this evening is not going to vote to close our 4 high schools. It's not going to even consider closing our 4 high schools this year. But I'm going to take you through some realities and tell you the truth about what's happening with school funding in our state and here locally. Hope to clarify that situation and to take your confusion and your anger and to help to focus it. If there was ever a time or a cause for us to come together as a community, this is it. If there was ever a time for us to demand action from our elected officials, this is it. And I'm going to give myself an excuse this evening. If anyone out there thinks that I am playing a game or that I'm being hyperbolic about the situation, you should have been here at this very meeting each of the last 5 years. Because for 5 successive years, this will be our 6th year in a row, that this board has been challenged to cut its way to a balanced budget. 6 years in a row. Every single year when I started in this role, we had to cut $26 million from our budget. The next year we had to close $13 million, and part of that solution was to close 3 schools. I'm sure many of you here had students that attended those schools. The next year we cut another $9 million, and then $4 million, and then $7 million. And this year, we've been faced with cutting $10 million. Now, early on in this process, I couldn't sit in front of this large group of people and assure you that the district was doing everything it could to be financially responsible, that our accounting was accurate, that we were making the best use of our taxpayer dollars. But at this point in history, I can tell you that we've made significant progress. And while there may still be a few things here and there that we could do more efficiently, we now can say that we spend less than 80% of the school districts in this Commonwealth. We can say that in terms of our overall revenue from state and local sources, we receive less than any district in Erie County. In fact, any district in the Tri-County area. So I'm going to ask my Chief Financial Officer, Brian Polito, who's done such an outstanding job in the 1 year that he's been with us, to help us understand how we got here and what the solution moving forward might be. I know that I won't answer all of your questions, and I doubt that we'll be able to hear public testimony from everybody in this room. So it's my understanding that we have some cards that you can write questions on, and we will attempt to answer those questions by email. And if we can, I assume somebody here from the district is back here to collect this. Is there someone back there that can give me a sign? Okay. In the back of the room, we'll be collecting your questions. I'll do my best, and Brian will do his best right now to answer many of them right now. So Brian, if we could start this process.
So before we get into where we are right now, I thought it would be a good idea to go over our history. And as you all are well aware, and as Dr. Badams mentioned, we've had a history of financial problems. As you can see on the top chart here, this is our budget or budget surplus or deficit, basically our income or loss from 2007-8 to 2016-17. We have it projected out to this coming budget year. And the bottom is our fund balance, which is basically our reserves. And as you look at the chart here, you can see that from 2007, 2008 through 2010, 11, we operated in a loss. So as a result of that, we ended 2010, 11 with a negative $12 million fund balance. Now, to put that in perspective, a school district of our size with a $180 million budget should have about 1.5 months worth of reserves in their fund balance. That would be $18 million. So at that point, we were at 12 million negative. And as you can see in the 11-12 year, when Dr. Badams started with a $26 million deficit, we had to make all those significant cuts, closing schools, cutting 240 teacher positions, cutting our central administration in half. And as a result, we ended the year in the green and with a small positive fund balance. And since then, every single year with the cuts we've made, we were able to keep our heads above water. But you can see that the 15-16 school year, with what we received from the state, we are projecting to end the year with a $3 million loss and will once again be in negative territory with our fund balance at negative 2.5 million. Starting out this school year, we started out the budget process with a $10 million deficit to close. And if we don't close that and continue to operate, we will end 2016-17 again with a $12 million negative fund balance. So despite all the cuts that have occurred over the years, we're still facing some financial troubles here. And just as Dr. Badams said, I want to point out that we right now spend less than 80% of the school districts in the state, and you can see at $12,904 per student, we are below the Erie County average and below the state average. So you can see if we were to spend the same amount as our peers in the county, we would need to increase our budget by $7 million a year. In order to get up to the state average, we would need to increase by $29 million. So one option available to us is real estate taxes, but unfortunately that is not a solution for us. The top left chart here shows what the real estate tax rates are in the county, and as you can see, we are the second highest taxing authority school district in the county. And because of our tax-exempt properties, which are almost 30% of our total assessed value, we collect one of the lowest amount of real estate taxes on a per pupil basis in the county. And in fact, if you look at Fort LaBeouf, on the top chart, they are one of the lowest taxing districts, and yet because they have the casino and they have Summit, they collect almost 4 times what we do on a per pupil basis as far as real estate taxes. In order to balance our budget this year, we would have to raise taxes almost 25%, and we can't do that under the law. As you can see on the left side of this page here,
The tax increase that we're allowed, with all the exceptions under the law, would be 5%, which would net us $1.9 million. And our base increase, without taking some exceptions allowed by the state, is 3.7, which would only generate $1.4 million in taxes. So again, we have a very low cost per pupil. We spend less than 80% of the school districts in the Commonwealth. Our tax rate is one of the highest in the county. This was the challenge that I had when I came here. I was hired here thinking that I was going to come in and find ways to save this district money. I've been pretty successful at doing that at Northeast and General McLean. When I got here and started looking at this, they've already made those cuts. They've made all the cuts they've needed to right-size this district. So the real question became, why are we continuing to struggle?
And Brian, if I could interrupt, during Brian's interview, I asked him why he was interested in joining us as Chief Financial Officer, and he said he wanted a challenge.
They remind me of that every single day. So if you look at how we compare with the other 500 school districts in the state, our median household income at $33,000 is 485th out of 500 school districts in the state. That means we're in the bottom 3%. Our economically disadvantaged, our English language learners, and our charter enrollment are 12th and 11th in the state. That means only 10 or 11 school districts in the entire state have more of those pupils than we do. So we're in the top 3% for that, and we have a above average special education population. So given all that, you would think that our state and local revenue on a per pupil basis would be somewhere near the top, because we have more challenges than almost every other school district in the Commonwealth. It's at the bottom. It's 484th out of 500 school districts. And even when you factor in the federal revenue, we're still in the bottom 12%. So this is our issue.
And I guess if you consider what the state's role should be in providing public education funding, school districts that have students who come to us with the level of need that they do should be receiving more. We should be certainly at state average, I would think, not at the bottom. The students who come to us with so many different challenges are left behind. And that's something that I think is absolutely unfair is such an understatement. It's shameful.
This scatter plot shows how unfair Erie's funding is compared to the 500 school districts across the state. If you look at the bottom, the horizontal axis, you can see that that's median household income, and each one of those dots on this chart represents one of the 500 school districts in the state. And you can see the further you go right on this chart, the wealthier the school district is. And on the vertical axis, the higher up you go, the more state and local revenue a school district gets on a per pupil basis. And you can see where Erie is. We are among the poorest and most underfunded school district in the entire state.
And again, we're in the state that's been identified by the U.S. Department of Education as having the greatest inequity, the greatest disparity between its best and worst funded school districts. So I guess you could say that in Erie, we're among the worst funded school districts in the state with the worst funding system. How do we fix that? Stay tuned.
When you drill down to our area, the disparity is even worse. This chart shows the school districts in Erie, Warren, and Crawford. And as you can see, we are an outlier here. We are by far the poorest and most underfunded school district in the Tri-County area. Just to get up to where Girard and Mill Creek is, that would be $1,000 per pupil increase in our revenue. That would mean almost a $14 million increase in our revenue on an annual basis, just to get up to the bottom.
And just to put that in perspective, because I haven't been paying too close of attention to social media traffic in the last few days, but I know there's some confusion about what we received in the 15-16 budget. Money was allocated in the 15-16 budget. Some additional millions of dollars were parceled out to the districts in the Commonwealth by what we'll describe in a little while here as a Basic Education Funding Commission formula. We saw about $2 million in additional funds as a result of that. But at the same time, in the same fiscal code, there was not any provision made to provide what's called Plan-Con funding, or a rebate against past construction projects that we've done. That meant that we lost $1.6 million right there. And then there was also a provision that the state is not going to make two Social Security reimbursement payments. Our net increase for the 15-16 budget, therefore, was about $100,000. Now, just to get us to the same level as the next lowest districts, as Brian just pointed out, would take almost $13,600,000. Oh, and Brian, before you go on, this is something that I was careful to explain to our students when I met with each of the high school groups this week. We're gonna be talking about inequity of funding. We're gonna be talking about what our district gets and what our neighboring districts get. I want to make sure everyone's crystal clear that this is not our surrounding townships' fault. This is not the fault of the county school districts. We're not suggesting that we want to take from them to solve our problem. This is a statewide problem of inequitable funding. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that, and I'll probably repeat that again later.
This slide depicts the same information. As you can see on the top, our state and local revenue per pupil in the Tri-County area is at the bottom. And then I have some statistics here for median household income, economically disadvantaged, English language learners, and charter enrollment. And again, this just shows that even though we have the greatest need in this area, our funding is at the bottom. If we were to receive the same amount of funding that Conneaut School District receives, and they're at the top at $15,044, our annual revenue would increase by $53 million. And really, I'm looking at state and local revenue here, and that's at the top. But again, the issue here is our funding formula in Pennsylvania. What a state funding formula is supposed to do is to step in when a school district like ours does not have a good, strong tax base, that has a lot of tax exempts, that can't raise the revenue other school districts can. When a school district has 10% of their population as English language learners and it requires more and additional teachers to service those kids, this is where the state funding formula should step in and level the playing field, and it's just not doing that. The bottom chart shows that our basic ed and ready to learn funding, this is the bulk of our funding from the state. This is what is supposed to be distributed to provide that level playing field, and we are not even at the average for the Tri-County area. I could make a really strong case that I think that our per pupil funding on that basic ed and ready to learn funding should be at the top where Union City is. And again, that increase is somewhere around $50 million. So maybe it's not fair to compare us with the county, that Erie, Warren, and Crawford, because we're different than those school districts. But we took a look at our peer districts in the state. And this group here is all the school districts in the state with more than 7,000 students and with a median household income below $40,000. And as you can see on the bottom here, our statistics are very similar to the rest of those districts. We're right in the middle of this group. Our median household income is a little below average. Our economically disadvantaged is right in line. Our ELL and charter, again, are right near the average for this group. The only thing that is not near the average is our funding. And when you look at this, Pittsburgh, I think, is a good example of some of the inequity that has occurred over the years. You can see where they are on the chart. They are above average at $5,875 per pupil. That's almost $1,300 more than what we receive on a per pupil basis. But look at their stats compared to ours. Their median household income is the highest in this group. Their economically disadvantaged was one of the lowest. They have next to no English language learners and about average charter enrollment. And yet their funding is significantly more than us. If we had the same funding as Pittsburgh, our revenue would increase by almost $18 million. So no matter how we look at it, in the area with our peer group, we are underfunded.
No,
Stacy?
I'm sorry, Brian. We're throwing a lot of numbers at you. And this is important to note as well. What we're talking about here is simply the state allocation. In Pittsburgh's case, Pittsburgh has so much local revenue that their students are funded over $20,000 per student to our $12,009. Now, if you think about that, I can't for the life of me believe that the cost of living in Pittsburgh is that much higher than the cost of living in Erie, that there should be that kind of a difference between the per pupil spending on students in Pittsburgh versus the amount of spending on students here in Erie. So I'll kick this part off. So how did we get here? Why is there this disparity? Is it because, as some have claimed, we've mismanaged our money? I would argue no. That may have been the case in the past here and there, but as it turns out, no, that's not really the cause. Many years ago, and as far as we can tell from our study of history, around 1991, as a result of a budget impasse in Harrisburg, the state ceased to use the number of students as the determining factor in allocating public education funds. We went away from a student head count. Instead, to resolve this budget impasse, they had an agreement that they decided that they would provide the same amount of funding to each school district that they received the previous year. This was called Hold Harmless. So Hold Harmless has been in effect ever since. And disputes and negotiations and the political process has been applied to any new funding that has been allocated in subsequent years, which is why you see such disparities even among the districts that are like us. One example is Allentown. Allentown has many of the same challenges that Erie does. They're definitely better off than we are financially, though. During the Corbett administration, they had a one-line bit of code in the fiscal bill that was passed that specified that a district that had, let's say, 14,000 students and more than 15% English language learners and had a market value aid ratio above 0.7 would receive $8 million. And guess how many school districts qualified for the $8 million? Just one, just Allentown. And it happened in previous administrations as well. In Pittsburgh, there was a law that was written during, I believe it was during the Rendell administration, did we determine?
Yes.
It was called the Commonwealth Partnership School District, and this one was pretty long. It was maybe 4 or 5 pages of code that was passed. And it decided that over a 5-year period, in installments of anywhere from $5 to $2 million a year, Pittsburgh would be the only school that this 4 pages of legal language applied to. So they received $17 million over a 5-year period, added to their basic education allocation, and that they've kept ever since because of Hold Harmless. Now, I ran through this with some friends of mine who are 5th grade students at Lincoln, who called my office, and I think they're going to speak with us today. I went through this with them. They understood it. I went through this funding formula with our high school students, sort of en masse, and they understood it. I said, in a policy that says you get the same amount of money last year, that you got last year, plus any increase, what happens if your number of students, your student population decreases? Okay, just give you a few minutes to think about the math here. If you have the same amount or more money, but you have fewer students, do you have more or less money per student? More. And if you're a school district that's lost as much as 30% of your student population, you have much more. And so hold harmless, the overall effect of that practice since 1991 has resulted in this gross disparity in our Commonwealth, and our elected officials have been forced to fight over the scraps of any increases over the years to try to keep their districts' doors open. The net effect has been that you can't even quantify this inequity by the wealth or poverty of a district, because as bad as this has hurt Erie, there are districts that have grown. Mill Creek's a great example. Mill Creek's on the losing end of this equation too. But most of the districts in Erie County have lost population. On average, they've lost 20% of their students since this happened. In some districts in Erie County, they've lost 30% of their students. Yet they've kept funding, and their funding has been increased over the years. So if anyone thinks that the reason that many of these school districts have facilities that are much, much nicer than ours, this building excluded, of course, it's our most recent building from 1997, but the buildings you saw on the slideshow that was cycling as you sat in your seats out here before the meeting, that's why we have not been able to keep our buildings to a standard that parents in surrounding districts would expect. And I have a maybe this is cynical of me, but I have this sense that there's a belief in the better funded school district world that, well, those students don't know any better. Those families don't expect to have real nice buildings like we have, or to have one-to-one computer programs for students like we have. They don't know any better. Do you disagree, ma'am? You agree with that? They don't know any better? Well, we're going to educate them. Well, you will have a chance, and I can't wait to hear what you have to share with us. So you don't have to take my word for it. Over a year ago, the Republican majority in the legislature they started a commission. It's called the Basic Education Funding Commission. And they built a commission that was bipartisan. There were representatives of the House and Senate from both parties. The administration was represented. The budget office was represented. And they took testimony from over 100 organizations and individuals throughout the Commonwealth in all sorts of geographic locations. I testified last January, or January 15, that is, in Greenville. They listened to all stakeholders, people from the charter schools, people from the parochial schools, people from all the alphabet organizations that represent teachers and administrators and business officials. And when they got all done, they did what I never expected them to do. They created a formula that actually did away with hold harmless, in essence. What it said was, you know what, we're going to do a weighted student head count. We're going to give districts credit for the extra cost of educating students who come from 3 different classifications of poverty. We're going to provide funding to adequately educate our new Americans who before they can even access our curriculum, need to learn the English language. They also said that, you know what, we've created this charter law that puts districts at odds with the charter schools and doesn't provide a separate source of funding, and they're going to, that are placed into competition for everything. We're going to provide a weighting for the number of students that are attending charter schools. And when that's done, we're going to have a student head count that is weighted, that helps to equalize and make fair the funding allocated to school districts in the Commonwealth. And to my amazement, they went a step further. You saw Brian's graph that showed our taxing conundrum, the notion that we have among the highest tax rates but generate the least amount of per pupil revenue. We have the highest amount of tax-exempt properties. They actually factored in the district's tax effort. and gave us another multiplier for that. They also looked at poverty. They looked at the relative wealth of a community, and they saw that that needed to be taken into account. And Erie, with a median household income of $33,000, ranking in the bottom 3% of the Commonwealth, scores high on that measure as well. And Brian, drum roll please. If that formula were applied to our entire allocation, our district would get $38 million a year more than it currently gets. Not 100,000, not 2 million, not even our deficit of 10 million, but $38 million more. Now, wow. Now that's annually. We would get $38 million more annually. Now, to me, that seems like winning the Powerball. And the chance of that ever happening is zero. Because to completely reallocate funding across the Commonwealth means that 320 districts roughly would lose money that they've managed to maintain through Hold Harmless, and 180 districts or so would gain. So if you think of all the legislators and the job they have of representing their constituencies, they would have to go home and say in those districts that are, I guess you could say, overfunded, we're going to take money. I'm going to have to vote to take money away from our kids so that we can give money to kids who have greater need, but we're going to fix a problem that is decades in the making by redistributing the whole pot. It won't happen. It wouldn't be fair. Like I said before, it's not the county school district's fault that this flawed funding system has been allowed to perpetuate. It's work avoidance. This isn't news to anyone in Harrisburg. It's been legislators decades ago who have failed to correct this problem. And the longer it's gone on, the harder it gets to correct. If we had $38 million, can you imagine what we would do in this district? All those pictures of the broken buildings. I mean, we've had people here very recently, a grandmother imploring us to provide textbooks for her children. Technology. Not roofs that don't leak. I see people from the PTO out there. We had a presentation from the Grover Cleveland PTO a little over a year ago that showed us pictures of their second grade classroom with 21 buckets collecting meltwater when we only had $200,000 in our, thank you. We only had $200,000 in our capital reserve account, and the roof job was going to cost us $700,000. We couldn't fix that one roof. We have 18 schools, many of which are falling apart. So far, Brian, I think you have another slide on this. So far, I guess this just puts it in perspective for you a little bit. If we got the $38 million and we corrected our $9 million structural deficit, it would leave us an additional $2,000 or so per pupil and would bring our overall new cost per pupil up to about $14,900, $15,000. Guess what? That's state average. So think about that. If they gave us $38 million, it would bring us to state average. And we've already gone to great lengths to share with you what the needs of our population are. So next slide. What's happening right now in Harrisburg, in fact, even today, is there's been legislation passed to use the Basic Education Funding Commission's formula forever and ever from now on, but to apply it to new money only. And there's a lot of debate about how long it will take, a lot of assumptions being made about how much new money we need or how much new money would take for us to see any kind of real correction of this problem. But right now, for money to be applied only to new dollars, it would take us 26, 27 years to see a significant restoration of equity here in Erie. And that's assuming about 2.6% new money every year. We've seen the willingness to collaborate in Harrisburg through the budget impasse of this past year. We can hope that there's cooperation around public education and that there are significant new dollars put into the public education system, but we certainly can't plan on it. And our students don't have 10 years. Projections from the people that are saying that this allocation with new money would be fine and that we'll have equity in 6 to 8 years. I would argue that even if those rosy projections of billions of dollars being added to public education are true, can our kids suffer inequity for 6 to 8 more years? Absolutely not. So that brings us to tonight's task, what we're really here for, what our board has to consider. Tonight, state law requires that this board adopt a proposed final budget. It's not a preliminary budget, but a proposed final budget. They're going to have to consider one of two options. I've given the board sort of a rock and a hard place decision. I feel bad about that, but I don't have any choices. We've given them a list of cuts, and I think Brian's going to show us a couple slides of what we're considering. But they have to either choose to make a choice from among a bunch of very horrible options to cut more from our children in order to balance their budget. They have to take a list of maybe, I don't know, $6, $8, $10 million worth of potential cuts and pick $4.3 million of them to balance the budget. For a 6th year in a row, they have to decide what to take away from our children. Not because they want to, because the law requires them to pass a budget. I guess the law requires that they pass a balanced budget. I'm going to provide two options for the board. They have to make a final decision on June 30th. We anticipate having to meet more to talk some more about potential cuts. But I, for one, not just as a superintendent of schools, but as a parent of a child in the school district and a proud parent of several graduates of this school district, as a resident of the city of Erie who's paying too high property taxes, as a dad of my son at Roosevelt Middle School, I will not recommend that this board cut our kids anymore. Thank you so much. But Brian needs to show you what the board has to really consider. And I know there are the cynical out there who think these are scare tactics or that we're trying to get attention. Well, yeah, we're trying to get attention. Of course we are. I swear to you, in the 7 trips that Brian and I have taken to Harrisburg to plead our case in the halls of the Capitol, I often wonder if people even know that Erie exists. In fact, some reporters have joked that in articles they've written about our efforts that, well, face it, folks, you probably never think about Erie, and then follow on with their stories. Well, I truly believe that. It's so hard. I feel like the Dr. Seuss book, Horton Hears a Who, when they're about to boil the Dust Specht, and everybody on the Dust Specht has to yell, "We're here, we're here." My hope is that you coming here tonight will help Harrisburg hear us. Brian, show the public and show the board yet again what's left for them to consider cutting.
So as we discussed earlier, we started this budget process with a $10.3 million deficit to deal with. We have identified $6 million in cuts that are included in the budget that the board is looking at tonight. Most of those cuts are things that we felt would have the least amount of impact on the classroom. So we have 10 central office positions that were cut. That's $1.4 million. We also, this was the last year of our GE grant, and our GE was generous enough to provide us about $2 million a year for the last 5 or so years. That has paid for our instructional coaches, it has paid for professional development for our teachers, and almost all of the curricular purchases we make here in the district were being paid for out of that grant. So with the elimination of that, we had to cut those items as well. We had the retirement incentive. We were fortunate enough to get 50 teachers that were willing to take that, which will save us about $1.2 million. We do have a reconfiguration in one of the schools, which would help us eliminate 5 elementary positions. And then we're also looking at reducing charter and regular transportation to state minimums. So with those cuts, that leaves us with a deficit of $4.3 million to deal with.
And Brian, I need to address one point that you brought up. So as we set out to start to cut this $10 million, we said, how can we protect the classroom as much as possible? Now, certainly these cuts will impact the classroom indirectly. But we did not want to have another layoff of teachers and another increase in class size. And you all need to understand very clearly, because I hear this also in the chatter, that our teachers are overpaid. Well, our teachers are making no more than the teachers in Erie County. In fact, they're beginning to make less because they've been working without a contract for 2 years in a row. Our teachers are not overpaid.
This page is a summary of our proposed 16-17 budget with all the cuts except for the remaining 4.3. So as you can see, we have $181 million in revenues and $186 million in expenses. So we're projecting to end of the year with a $4.3 million deficit if further cuts aren't made. And this is compared to 15-16, and as you can see again, we're projecting a $3 million loss in 15-16. On the revenue side, we do have some increases, but we also have decreases that basically offset every one of them. Our biggest increase in revenue is our state retirement subsidy. The state reimburses us about 50 or 70% of our state mandated retirement contributions. Our contributions to the retirement system are going up to 30.03% of payroll this year. That is a $2.6 million increase in that payment. This subsidy of 1.8 offsets 70% of that. So that is not new money. That is just a partial offset of the increase that we're going to see on the expense side. Our basic ed and ready to learn subsidy, this is assuming the governor gets half of what he's asking for, and it's distributed using the fair funding formula. We would see a $1.7 million increase. And again, if you look at that increase compared to the $38 million that we should be getting if the whole pot was redistributed, it's just a little dribble. And again, if it continues like that, for us, it's going to be too little too late. Last year, as part of the budget process, as Dr. Adams mentioned, our PlanCon rental reimbursements for our buildings was eliminated out of the budget. We have that in there as a restoration. We are hoping that happens. And then a bright spot in our finances is our cafeteria. We have implemented a breakfast in the classroom program, and as a result, our cafeteria is actually making $1.2 million a year. So we'll be able to allocate some of our expenses from our general fund over there, and that will be self-sufficient. On the major revenue decreases, I mentioned that the GE grant was in its last year. That's $2.3 million. We also, for the last several years, have been using some health insurance reserves to balance our budget. Last year, that was about $3 million. Those reserves have all been depleted. We don't have any more money left to use one-time fixes to balance our budget. And then we're also seeing a decrease in our federal grants of around $800,000. So overall, when you add up the increases and you take away the decreases, our net increase in our revenues on a $180 million budget is $140,000.
We'll try not to spend it all in one place.
And here's how we're going to spend it. Our major revenue increase, or expense increase, is PSERS. That's our retirement contribution. Again, that is a state-mandated rate that is set by the state, and we're required to pay it, and if we don't pay it, they withhold it from our subsidy. That's going to increase $2.5 million. Based on what has happened with our charter tuition the last several years, we're expecting that to go up to $1.7 million, up $1.7 million. So right now, our charter costs are close to $23 million on our $180 million budget. Our health insurance, we were able to get some savings. We did negotiate a better deal with Highmark on our prescription drug program, which is going to save us $450,000, but that only partially offsets the inflationary increase that we're expecting next year. And then on the next major increase, the retirement incentive and sick day buyout, that's a result of our retirement incentive. So net, we are still saving on that at $1.2 million. On our expense decrease, because of the cuts that we're proposing as far as the central administration, and because of the savings we're realizing on the teacher retirements, our salaries are going to be down about $2.6 million compared to the previous year. Because of where our financial situation is, we had about $1.3 million in capital and equipment purchases. A big chunk of that last year was the roof for Grover Cleveland. That has all been stripped out of this budget. Our payroll taxes are decreasing $160,000 because of our drop in salaries, and again, a major chunk of the decrease in supplies is a result of what's happening with our GE grant. So overall, we're looking at a net increase in our expenditures of $1.4 million. And this chart just gives you a breakdown of how we spend our money. And the two items that I really want to point out here are our charter tuition at $23.4 million and our retirement contribution at $21.6 million. Those are two pieces of our budget totaling almost 20% of the budget that we have no control over.
There are also matters of debate in Harrisburg, and they represent major policy considerations that need to be resolved.
And this is a breakdown of our expenditures by program. And as you can see, the bulk of our money is spent on instruction. One thing, too, I want to point out are central administration costs. I know that that's the first place that people want to look. If we closed down our entire central administration office and didn't have a superintendent, a business office, didn't have our enrollment center, it would decrease our budget by $5.8 million. That's 3%. So again, where we're at with our budget is we're still faced with a $4.3 million deficit. So on this slide, we've identified the different options that we believe are available to balance the budget. And these are sorted from high to low. They're not in any prioritized order. We have not started to do that process, but as you can see, there are some options to close that gap. All of them are devastating to our district.
So there's about $10 million worth of potential cuts here, and I guess the board does have some flexibility. They maybe could cut just half of art and music, or maybe cut just high school sports. No? Well, maybe we could just cut the part of the police department. Sure. Maybe we could close, instead of closing all the libraries, close half the libraries. So if you were on the school board, these are your choices. I'm not hiding any choices that are out there that would be less harmful. We're not picking and choosing, trying to create a false choice. This is what we have left to cut. I've used the analogy of the district's budget process being like treating a trauma patient. When a body's in shock, the blood supply is directed to the vital organs. So what the board has to consider now is directing the blood supply to the vital organs and maybe sacrificing an arm here and a leg there. And again, I will not recommend that this board do any combination of these cuts. Which schools would lose their library? Which sports, what grade levels of sports should we cut? There's a tax increase on here too. There are people in this town who are struggling to make their tax payments, senior citizens, people with limited incomes, trying to just make ends meet and pay their taxes. And there are people who have really nice homes on South Shore who are paying $30,000, $40,000 a year in school taxes. There are businesses who are burdened with excessive property tax. And we need more, not less business to open up in the city of Erie. We need jobs. By the state not funding us fairly, they're creating a situation where nobody will want to move into the district and no business will want to open up and employ our people. Sorry, Brian, I got sidetracked. Absolutely. I love the question. The question that you just asked, and we can't engage in too much of a back and forth right now. We'll never get through this meeting, but your question is an excellent one. And it also highlights the willingness. I've had so many people, everyone from little children, who are willing to make bracelets and sell them to raise money to keep our schools open. Who should never, ever be in the position where they have to do anything, to sell anything, to get what everybody else in other schools takes for granted. I've had philanthropic organizations and individuals say, how can I help? And you know, it's been a very difficult question for me to answer because I feel like we've gone to so many offices and talked to so many different people who have the power to change this. And we keep on, we're told time and time again that there are other districts that are just as needy as us. And we'll have to get in line, or if we do something special for Erie, then everybody else will want something as well. Well, I think Erie is different. I think because we've done the things we've done here year after year, cutting our budget, getting efficient, spending less than 80% of the districts in the Commonwealth, not every district that's in financial trouble can say that. We can prove it. The report that Brian just went through with you, all that data, all those graphs and charts, all those numbers, nobody since February has been able to refute a bit of it. No one. We have presented this in so many places, and the data is not pretty, and it makes things look, well, makes them look unfair, like they are. But nobody's been able to say that Brian's numbers are wrong, and they've tried. Every time we've had a meeting, whether it's with the Secretary of Education or anybody, they've questioned because they just can't get their minds around the fact that we could be in this situation. People have said almost universally, how could this be? Well, we just showed you how it can be. And the solution to this is not that complex. It's a math problem. It's a problem of will. It's a problem of getting a bunch of people in a room and saying, hey, look, there's this much money, there's this much inequity, we've got to figure out some way that doesn't harm the districts that have benefited from hold harmless too badly, and that makes it right for the districts that have been penalized. A lot of different ways that could be done. Trickling it out by applying it only to new money that we can never really count on is the same thing as the state coming in with a gallon of water to a person dying of thirst in the desert and offering them 1 drop per day. We are headed, and this is something the board will have to deal with sometime in the course of this year, if not in the very near future. We have the specter hanging over us of insolvency or bankruptcy or whatever you want to call it, basically running out of money. That's something else that we're not going to vote on tonight, but that's something that's very real. In conversations we've had as recently as this afternoon with the Department of Education, there's a chance that if we can't get the typical short-term loan that we get every year to start the school year off, if we can't get a lending institution to take a risk on us, given our very shaky financial status, if we can't get that loan, we're going to have to ask the state for an advance on that basic education subsidy. And if we ask for that advance, it's going to, I almost use the word qualify. I guess it's going to qualify us as a recovery district. That's the state's equivalent of Chapter 47 for a city, or Act 47. It's essentially saying that you're on the verge of bankruptcy and the state's going to monitor you and appoint a recovery officer that's going to basically tell the board what to do. And if the board decides to disagree with the recovery officer is going to turn into something called a receiver, and they're just going to order the board to do what that person says. And by law, the board's going to have to. We will essentially relinquish control of the school district to a receiver. And there are a number of districts throughout the Commonwealth that are already in receivership. There's no guarantee of any money if we go into recovery. There's only this added layer of some expert who's going to come in here, be assigned to us to tell us how to cut our budgets and to manage our finances. I wish the state would say, you know what, you're almost in recovery. Let's assign that receiver to tell you what to do now if they know how to better manage our finances. Why wait till we go into bankruptcy? If that person exists out there, I wish they'd walk through the door right now and tell us what we haven't done and tell us how we can right our financial ship. I'll tell you what, if this person does exist, I hope they come out soon and help us out. But if we do go into receivership and we do lose local control, I think that person's going to come in here and find that this board and the administration and all of you, teachers, parents, taxpayers who have sacrificed to keep this district afloat, we've all done what we can do. In fact, we've studied the districts that have gone into receivership. They still have football teams. They still have a full complement of sports. Most of them receive much more per pupil funding than Erie students do, and yet they're in receivership. What is a receiver going to find here in Erie that's going to change our trajectory? I will be shocked if they return with any sort of recommendation that we haven't already contemplated. That's a great question, and actually, I guess I'll get back on track and let Brian advance the slides and we can answer that for you. So the board does have to make this difficult decision. We don't anticipate any Hail Mary. We don't anticipate that we're going to see some big restoration of funds for Erie. We anticipate that many out there, even some people that have been allies of ours, are going to say that, well, now we have the fair funding formula into law on new money. If you'd advance the slide, please. What is going to happen? Again, down the road, in a year, 2 years, who knows how long, we might have to look at doing what places like Wilkinsburg have done and not provide high school education. But I will promise everyone in this room this, that we have a resolution before the board tonight that will ask us to study the feasibility for going down this unfortunate path. There's no way this could happen in a year. In Wilkinsburg, it took 2 years. And I'll promise you that there's no way that we will pursue this course without the full participation of all of our stakeholders, including our neighbors in other districts, including our lawmakers, our teachers, the general public, our students. We won't go down this road lightly, but it may be a road we have to travel. And that's a problem. But over the course of a year or 2 years, it may be that we can negotiate, find some understanding, and actually have a more regional approach to education. We certainly understand. We certainly understand, and that's nothing that this board or I or anyone else, I think, in our administration would want to do. Can we go to the next slide? And we can do, actually, I do want to linger on that last point. The reason we're contemplating cutting our high schools at all is that we might save some money. But beyond that, if we are forced to cut art, music, sports, eliminate our coaches, all these other things that we're looking at as potential cuts, if we were going to send your children to high schools that didn't have any of those resources, how fair would that be? When there are schools within 10 miles of each of their homes that have 8-lane all-weather tracks. Anyone who's driven Peach Street and driven by Bolitnikoff Field and seen the track facility at Central Tech, is that equitable? We have children attending our elementary schools where they're eating and doing gym in the same room, sweating and eating in the same place, where in other districts there are separate beautiful gymnasiums that are nicer than any of our high school gyms for their elementary students. Our kids simply don't have equitable resources. So if our choice is to cut everything away from our high schools or to concentrate our resources on K through 8 and make our schools a little nicer and provide more resources for K-8, maybe it's not such a horrible thing to think about having our students attend school at some of these better funded districts. Maybe. Well, again, our community, ma'am, and again, one thing that I will say about your comment, and I have seen some of those posts as well, the conversation that we're having as a community right now might be the one silver lining in this horrible situation that we find ourselves in. The fact that we're going to have conversations about which kids should go to school where, and whether or not I want my children associating with those children. Those are conversations probably long overdue in our community. So back on track with what the board's tasked with tonight. Our board tonight has to decide, again, whether to balance the budget or whether to pass a budget that's not balanced. They have to decide if they're willing to authorize me to instruct the administration to execute these cuts and deny our children, deny them access to the same resources that their neighbors have. If we make these cuts, we'll be reducing that per pupil expenditure even more. We're already in the bottom 20%. Will we be in the bottom 15%? The bottom 10% of the districts in Pennsylvania in our investment in our children? When the districts that are already in bankruptcy spend way more than we do? Again, this is another reason that Erie's situation is different from the other districts that are also realizing hardship. Next slide, please. Oh, I guess that's the end. It's not really. I could go for hours, but I'm sure the board would not appreciate that, and nor would you. And I know there are a lot of you that want to speak your mind tonight at the podium. Before you move to that part of the agenda, I want to make a few things clear. We are hopeful that the discourse that we'll have moving forward, whether it's discussing what we might do with our high schools, discussing what we might do with our budget, it's so nice to see so many people here, and my hope is that we can have a civil discourse, we can disagree and be angry, and express ourselves in a way that's respectful. I'll tell you this, the mere fact that so many of you are here in this room right now will not be lost on Harrisburg, and it's my understanding that you're being watched right now in Philadelphia. Your very presence here is telling the entire Commonwealth that you care about your children, you care about Erie's public schools. I hope that if nothing else, you have a better understanding of our state's funding system that is in existence right now, and have a better understanding about the true disparity between the funding that children in the city of Erie are receiving and the funding that children elsewhere in the Commonwealth are receiving, and that by the state's tolerance of that disparity and that inequity, they're putting a price tag on our kids. And they're saying that children in Erie are not worth as much as children in Pittsburgh. They're saying that children in Erie are not worth as much as children in some of our outlying school districts. And again, it's none of their fault. It's not the fault of the people and the taxpayers and the school districts in the county. It's not their fault. It's work avoidance. It's a failure to solve a problem that has an obvious solution. Amen. So there's a lot more I could say, but we do want to get through this meeting tonight. And I thank all of you for coming. And it's our hope that through our deliberations tonight and on June 30th, that we'll come to some solution, that perhaps Harrisburg will have some good news for us in the ongoing deliberations in the 16-17 budget process. I'm not going to hold my breath, but neither will I recommend to this board that they cut one more dollar from our children. And, Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Appreciate Mr. Polito and Dr. Badams. Mr. Harkins?
I move we accept and approve the report of the superintendent.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Harkins, seconded by Mr. Petrunger. Discussion on the motion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that would be for the superintendent report from 2 through 2.04, correct? Thank you. All right. All in favor again, please?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. At this point, we're going to have a hearing of citizens. Persons desiring to speak for 5 minutes must submit their request in writing to the Secretary's office at least 1 week prior to the board meeting. All others may speak for up to 3 minutes. Our 5-minute speakers this evening, our first speaker on the agenda is State Senator Sean Wiley, speaking to the board regarding school funding. Good evening, Senator.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. How are you this evening?
Fine.
Wish we had better things to talk about, don't you guys?
Yeah, amen.
Mr. Casillo, directors, Dr. Badams, Mr. Polito, faculty, staff, parents, students, and community members. I stand before you tonight with one clear message. Our children matter. We will not give up. There is no greater responsibility of the Pennsylvania General Assembly than to invest in the future of this Commonwealth. And that future begins and ends in public education. Ladies and gentlemen, public education is under attack in this Commonwealth. There's a pervasive devaluation of our fundamental right to highest quality education. Partisan politics is so far entrenched into seemingly every decision. Are there those who have forgotten that children aren't Democrats or Republicans, but children? Do only some lives matter? How is it acceptable that educational opportunity has been tied to a zip code? That if you are not as privileged, you don't somehow deserve the same educational opportunities? The disinvestment in public education has much more grave implications than some people can fully comprehend. It ultimately leads to hopelessness. Why would anyone venture into the darkness if there wasn't even a glimpse of light on the other side? Education is often referred to as the great equalizer and proven to be a ladder by which someone can climb from poverty. In at least 5 years, this Commonwealth has cut $1 billion from education. $1 billion. And our test scores show it. How is it logical or responsible to think that disinvestment would ever lead to progress? In February of 2013, then Governor Corbett announced his spending plan for the 13-14 fiscal year. My very first budget vote as a senator. Governor Corbett tied increases in education funding to selling off the liquor system, using our kids as bargaining chips. He said no education increases if the liquor system wasn't privatized. Unfortunately, that same mentality is found today. And our kids are being used as bargaining chips because education is simply not a priority for many in the General Assembly. Over these last weeks, the chatter surrounding the plight of Erie's public schools has been eye-opening, to say the least. There are some that feel that Dr. Badams and the board are engaged in scare tactics, that some hefty pay cuts and teacher reorganization could do the trick. There are some that think that the Commonwealth isn't on the hook here at all, that the problem lies with the city of Erie and the local tax base. Those same people have obviously been absent when the tough decisions have been made each year for the last 6 years by this school board to cut budgets. Those same voices don't care that $45 million of a $185 million budget is spent on things outside of Dr. Badams' control and the control of this board. Spent on things like charter costs and pension costs. You know, I've been beating this drum of responsible investment in public education since the day I set foot in office. And for more than a year now, Dr. Badams and I have been describing in detail, Dr. Badams, would you agree? The plight of Erie's public schools in Harrisburg. So I stand before you tonight to tell you that this Commonwealth is abdicating its greatest responsibility. This Commonwealth is failing its students. Pennsylvania has the largest funding gap between the wealthiest and the poorest schools in this country. We also have the widest economic, racial, and ethnic achievement gap in the United States of America. A class of 25 students in the wealthy Pennsylvania district will spend almost $80,000 more than that same class in a poor district. I'm one voice of 253 in the General Assembly. But I will continue to be loud, and I will keep screaming as long as it takes. Remember, there is strength in numbers, and adding your voices makes ours stronger. Your calls, your letters, your emails, your online posts, and your outrage will make our voices that much stronger. We continue to build a coalition of support, one that tells the rest of Harrisburg that Erie will not be forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, the answers are there. The solutions to this problem exist. Harrisburg has them and has had them for years. The Pennsylvania House and Senate can fund schools if they want to. But it requires tough decisions. It requires political will, and it requires guts. If there's ever a question of where Sean Wiley is in all this, just as sure as I'm standing here tonight, I have been and will continue to be in the trenches. Every conversation, every day, and with everyone has been and will continue to be about Erie's public schools and responsible investment in public education. Thinking back to when I first took office, and within my first week, I told my staff that finding a way to right the ship in public education funding in this Commonwealth is likely the most important thing we could ever do for our constituents. Little did I know then how right I was. We cannot look to the past to find an answer. The answer would only lead to more of the same. If we want something we've never had, we need to do something we've never done. So I stand before you tonight, not only as your senator, but as a lifelong member of this community and as a father of public education students. This is my home. This is our home. We will not give up. I will not give up. This is not over.
Thank you, Senator Wiley.
Thank you, Senator. Words well spoken. We appreciate it. Our next 5-minute speaker is Mr. John F. Evans, a certified public accountant with Evans Advisory Services, speaking to the board regarding the financial situation of our district. And Mr. Evans is also a member of the Erie School Board's Financial Advisory Committee. I welcome you, Mr. Evans. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'm going to turn my back to them and talk to you.
Thank
you. Okay? Shortly after Jay became superintendent, he called a group of people together to form a financial advisory committee to the board and the superintendent. His predecessor was never interested in anybody else's opinions, but he is. Okay, and we've been meeting now for 5.5 years. We came into our role, we're all volunteers, facing the $26 million deficit. That's like taking over the helm of the Titanic after it hit the iceberg. Okay? That's an awfully tough opening act. But we've been working with the board and the superintendent every step of the way to try and figure out how best to manage a very difficult situation, not of our community's making. Now, you've heard a lot of information tonight, and I can assure you that everything you heard is true. I'm a certified public accountant and a certified financial planner. I do this work for a living. I have hundreds of clients in Erie that I help plan their futures using this kind of information. So I can tell you that what you've been told by Brian and Jay is true. It's not a fabrication or an exaggeration. It's a truly difficult situation. But I'd like to share with you one facet that may not have come through to you. And that's that there are a whole bunch of independent issues here that are all interconnected. The decline of Erie's industrial base has left an awful lot of property in the city without any taxes paid because there's no business going on there. Just go along the West 12th Street and East 12th Street corridors, and you can see acres and acres of vacant industrial space. Sooner or later, that catches up with you. In the last 10 years, the 3 biggest growth industries in this town are education, medicine, and government. How much taxes do they pay? Not much. Okay? Now, it's great from a jobs perspective. But understand that the vast majority of our best property in Erie, waterfront property, is owned by government. Is owned by government. So we're dealing with a huge challenge to try and generate taxes from a tax base that's dwindling. And that places more and more pressure on the state to make up that differential. And that's a tough challenge to overcome. The district has cut employees, has frozen salaries, has cut supplies, has closed schools, has done things that no other district in this state has done. And yet we have deficit after deficit. What were the three big costs that you saw on that list? Pension contributions. When we started our committee, pension contributions were 5 or 6% of payroll. Today, they're 30% of payroll. Think of that. The average business in this town with a 401k plan puts in 3% of payroll, and we're putting in 30% of payroll to a pension plan. Now, I'm not criticizing the people getting the pensions, don't get the wrong impression, but that's a tough nut to handle. Healthcare costs. Any of you in this room pay for your healthcare? Okay. How much has healthcare gone up in the last few years? A ton. Okay? How much of that increase has passed on to the employees? Some, but the district ends up covering most of it. And that cost has no end in sight but to continue to go up. So we've got some challenges on the expense side that are awfully tough to deal with. It seems to me that what we really need to get at in this community is a decision to make our community better, and in the process of making our community better, to make the situation for the schools better. We have to look outside just the school issue because there are a lot of other things coming to play. So as we go into the election cycles next year for local elections, remember that and ask candidates what their position is on improving our economic climate in this community, on getting more jobs, on getting more equity in taxes, on consolidating government activities. We've got 13 school districts in this county. Do we really have to have 13? Could 7 or 8 do? How much money could we save if we had one busing contract instead of 13? Or one meal service contract instead of 13? Just let your mind work on that. It doesn't mean that we have to give up our local identity, but couldn't we be smarter about how we do it? One of the things that I think we're challenged with in this state is we've got a state that's operated in small government units, and we've got to rethink that. Now, we're not going to solve those problems in the Erie School District, but we've got to start to think broader if we're going to solve some of these problems. But understand one thing, the information they're providing you is true. It's accurate, it's not exaggerated, it's not for purposes of enraging your opinions. It's honest, factual information. It's probably the most honest any government has ever been with its people.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Our next speaker are the student voices speaking to the topic of school funding. So would our children of school voices please address the podium.
Hello, my name is Dylan Torrentor. I'm a Strongwitson junior.
Hello, my name is Michael Cornell, and I'm a Central senior.
My name is Lauren Abbott, and I'm a senior at Collegiate Academy.
We are here today part of the Voices Committee and Council, and something we've done actively is we've spoken about this numerous times. We back up the entire board completely. We are wondering what we can actually do to help. Now, going to Strongwitson my entire high school life, I've kind of noticed when I learned out of city to other schools that our school is not as good as others could be, you could say, but that has not stopped our pride whatsoever. And nonetheless, we are continuously, every day, attending school, doing the best we can. But when this was brought up to my attention and my entire council's attention of us maybe not having high school in 2017, 2018 years, a little bit of it was depressing, you could say. We were completely confused on how we could do, because how can you get rid of high schools and not expect the future to continue going on? When you ship students out of high schools to other areas, what identity does Erie have itself? And that's something you think about, that not only are we just East, Collegiate, Strong Vincent, and Central, but we are Erie together. And that is something we have spoken about numerous times. I'm gonna let my friend Michael here speak.
Going to Central Tech has been a different experience from what I've had before. Central's been a really big technical school, but due to the fact that the budget has yet to been passed and that we're underfunded, it means that we don't get the technology that we need. It's detrimental to our schools. It's detrimental to some of the shops here at Central due to the fact that a lot of them need the technology that we don't have the money to get. IT at Central is very underfunded. We're trying to do stuff, and sometimes it's just really not easy with the amount of resources that we have available to us. So it's really difficult with the budget and the fact that we may not, depending on how things go, we may not have the high schools, which is gonna hurt the Erie community a lot due to the fact that technically we are the third largest county in the state. So with the fact that it's just really detrimental to our education and to future generations' education.
Collegiate Academy is consistently ranked one of the top 3 schools in the state. Our clubs and activities such as Model UN, FBLA, and ASL constantly rank local, state, and nationally. Imagine how much more we can achieve, how much further we can go if we were given the same opportunities and resources that these other districts were given. I know. As a Collegiate Academy students, one of our favorite things is holiday homecoming, when all the alumni get to come back right at the end of their winter break. As a senior, it's sad for me that I may not be able to have a holiday homecoming, may not be able to come back to my school and be able to see my old teachers. And that this year, while I've seen all my old friends and the graduated seniors at concerts, plays, our discussion isn't about our old school memories. It's about the future of collegiate and what's gonna happen to our district. It's very disheartening.
We are the Student Voices Council. We represent all 4 high schools, and we stand behind you and the entire city of Erie when we say we are willing to know what we can do next. What are we able to do to help? Because not only is this just our city, but this is also our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In the category of voices, student voices, we have some pupils from Lincoln, I believe. Is it Lincoln, girls? Please step up.
Hi, my name is Janessa Adelix de Jesus. I saw the video that Dr. Badams presented, and it upset me, so I called him on my own time and my own perspective. Nobody knew. It upset me because the video showed pictures of how bad our schools look. I go to Lincoln Elementary, and in my school we have a music class in a stairwell, and it's very upsetting because our music teacher is very talented and we don't have real instruments, so she can't teach us real music. And then in our auditorium, it's really hurtful because like there's holes in our curtains, there's the carpet ripping off of our seats, the floor is coming off, and then in the parking lot, like if you drive in our parking lot, all you fall in is potholes. And today I was going in the parking lot and I fell and slipped, and we really need to get that fixed. And then And then in my hallway, on the 3rd floor, there's paint ripping off of our hallway, and it's very nasty. And then there's potholes in the ceiling that leaks out water, and somebody can just slip and fall and we won't even know. And I also saw pictures of nice-looking schools Why can't we have nice looking schools? They have nice wood floors in their gym, separate eating space, separate gym space, and separate auditorium spaces. We deserve the same. My school is like a second home to me, not just my school. Erie is my home, so if Erie is my home, then all of Erie Public Schools is my home. And they think that we don't watch the news. We don't watch the news. We know everything about fair funding. Please fund our schools. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kiara Morgan. Like my friend said, I called Dr. Badams and myself. My school is like a second home to me. I've been to Lincoln Elementary practically all my life. We watch the news. It upsets me. We have way more poor children, kids who don't even speak English. I've learned we get money for each kid. Why is our amount so low? We have way more kids. Look at this chart in my hands. One school gets $5,000 per kid, and we get $11,000. We're way down here. How is that fair? Don't they care about the city kids? Are we important to them? Or do they just think we don't understand? I am here to respectfully ask for you to fund our schools. Just be fair. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kiera Williams, and like my friend said, we are all very upset. I saw the video, and I understand about the fair funding formula. If districts get money for how many students you have, more for poor kids, some for kids who don't speak English, and for charter schools, why aren't they following the formula? That's just wrong. Are they just passing out money to the districts like they always do? It doesn't matter how many kids they have, how many poor families are in the district, how many kids that don't speak English. That's so not fair. We know it's not you guys, but can you talk to who it is in charge of the money for us? We love our schools. I'm not done. We love our schools. They make us feel like they don't care about us. If they do care about us, they should fund our schools. Thank you.
We have some petition signs. Can we bring them up to you?
Bring them right up. You can bring those right up on the stage here and hand them to this young man at the end of the table. And I have to tell you, these young ladies called my office and left a message saying that they wanted to make bracelets to sell in their school so they could raise money to keep our high schools open. I think I went through that report that we just took the public through with them, and they understood it as well as most of the legislators that I've presented it to. In fact, maybe better.
I don't want to shortchange any other student that's here that would like to come forward. And not seeing anyone, we've moved to our next 5-minute speaker. I'll defer to Dr. Badams.
I hope he's here, but Mr. William McDonald is our next 5-minute speaker. Is Mr. McDonald here? Before Mr. McDonald gets to the podium, I want to let everyone here know this is an impressive turnout of individuals from the community who've come here because you're concerned. William McDonald comes to every single Erie School District Board meeting, and he lets us know when he doesn't think we're doing things correctly, and he doesn't hold back. But I have to tell you, even when there's not a crisis, he's here representing his community and the students of the city of Erie. And Mr. McDonald, I just want to thank you publicly, since we do have a crowd here tonight, for caring enough to come to school board meetings every month when there's crickets chirping in the seats.
You know, I'm glad to see this crowd here. They should be here every school board meeting.
Our kids are concerned. There's strength in numbers. One voice down here, it don't mean that much. It'll be a trickle in the sand. But if everybody would come down, you're showing me that you love your kids. If you don't come and see about your kids, you don't love them. I love mine. Mine are grown and I love them. And I love your kids too. That's why I come down here. Some of you are afraid to get up here to talk to these people. They're not going to eat you up. When you go down there and pay your taxes, you moan and groan, but you got to pay them. So why not come and represent your kids? You know, our kids are our future. I don't want to see another school closed. I don't want to see that. They're overburdened now, the teachers in the classrooms. It don't make sense. Taxes keep going up. Hey, I don't mind paying the taxes because, hey, our kids is getting an education. They got to be educated. What they gonna do if you close all the schools? You're gonna have a lot more crime in the streets, and we don't need that. You know, Mr. Batten, how much do a teacher start out at?
$40,000 a year, roughly.
And they got to go to college. The police start out at $42,000 a year, and they don't go to college one day. Now, what do you think about that? It don't make sense to me. Hey, we need our teachers more so than we need the police, because if the kids are getting taught right, they're not going to resort to crime. They're not. You know, I go to city council. Of course, they don't like me down there. But it don't mean nothing to me. I didn't come here for you to like me. I come here to tell you what's on my mind. And what's on my mind is on a lot of your mind. But you don't have the galls to get up here and express it. Me, I tell them I don't care. You can't kill me but one time. Well, that's the truth. I haven't heard anybody coming back from death. I know a lot of things I say people don't like, and I could care less about that. But there's freedom of speech. Use it. They've taken so many of our freedoms away that I don't know, it's a shame. But if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. That's the truth. You know, it's not that they don't have the money down there in Harrisburg. They got the money down there. What they holding on to it, I don't understand. I don't understand. They're using our kids, they're holding them hostage. And that's wrong. These kids shouldn't have to worry about whether the school's gonna be open or not. All they should worry about is try to get them grades in and get on out of there. They got to worry about, is the schools closing a lot? I hear a lot of people, coming, the schools are closing. What are we paying taxes for? Everybody pays taxes. When them foreigners come in here, they don't have to worry about nothing. So, hey, we're the foundation. We shouldn't have to worry about nothing, and our kids shouldn't have to worry about anything. We need to get on them politicians. When it comes time to vote, you remember what they did to our kids, because they're doing this to our kids. See, we're grown. They're not hurting us, but they're hurting our kids. And I don't like nobody picking on kids. I don't like that. They're holding our kids hostage. We got to do something. When the time comes to vote, remember this. Ask them what is their agenda. I asked them at City Council what is your agenda? A lot of them don't even have agenda. They just want to be up there. It don't make sense. We can't use you up there if you don't have a plan for our kids. Our kids are the most important thing to us. pray for our board up there too, that they make the right decisions. Dr. Badham, don't close another school. Don't close no more schools. That's unacceptable. We just don't need that. We want to encourage our kids, not discourage them. And to hear that talk about closing schools, that's discouraging them, because it discourages me. I don't want to hear nothing like that. I want you to remember what you heard. This old man, I'm an old man. But I tell you what, I'll tell you what's on my mind. And some of it you don't want to know.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
I want to thank you all for listening to me. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
But don't forget our kids. I don't care what you do. Don't leave the kids out. Don't leave the kids out. People talk about how bad kids are. You ain't seen no bad kids. You close those schools. You'll see some bad kids then.
Yeah.
I thank you for your
Mr.
time.
McDonald.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. McDonald. Also, in our speaker this evening, we had a request from Mr. Mike Batchelor of the Erie Community Foundation, who also wanted to address the Erie School District business. Good to see you, Mr. Batchelor. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, my pleasure. I'm Mike Batchelor and president of the Erie Community Foundation, and I'm here tonight because I'm told Harrisburg is watching us, and I guess Philadelphia is also. After hearing the students, I'm not sure there's anything better I can add, but I'll try. Erie schools and the families they serve are faced with a crisis. It's a crisis they do not deserve and a crisis they cannot solve. Every day, students in Erie classrooms around Pennsylvania recite the Pledge of Allegiance. We did it here tonight. They finish with the words, "and liberty and justice for all." Some recite this pledge in state-of-the-art classrooms. They have libraries filled to the brim and a full array of extracurricular activities. Others recite this same pledge in crowded classrooms with leaky ceilings and empty bookshelves. In Pennsylvania today, education is not equal, and this is not right. As our own Erie Times News said in a recent editorial, having access to opportunities shouldn't depend on a child's zip code. Now, as you all know, this inequality is worse in some places than in others. As an example, the choices made by elected officials in Ohio created a system that provides more funding for districts serving high-need students. Here in Pennsylvania, our elected officials made different choices. Pennsylvania chose to fund school districts in a different way. As a result, over time, Pennsylvania now ranks third from the bottom when measuring the equality of education funding. Again, as you know better than I, on average, Pennsylvania students in high poverty districts receive 10% less than low poverty districts. And this inequality is even worse in Northwest Pennsylvania. And this inequality impacts us all, no matter our zip code. Now, the good news is that Harrisburg understood this problem needed fixed. And again, as has been discussed, the Bipartisan Public Education Funding Commission recommended a way out. This was a great accomplishment. But again, as has been discussed, the formula only applies to new money. It did nothing to address decades of damage caused by a system that ignored factors like poverty, a declining tax base, and students with greater educational needs like English language learners and special education students. So now we find ourselves at a crisis moment. While this may be a bit frustrating for you to hear, I think your message is just now beginning to resonate within the broader community. So I know the clock's ticking, but please keep focused on getting the facts in front of everyone that can help. I'm told Harrisburg has found a way to help other communities facing similar situations. This is what we need. We need to come together as a region in a bipartisan fashion and turn our attention 300 miles southeast. We need to speak with a unified voice to help students in the Erie City School District receive the funding they deserve. So I really do hope Harrisburg is watching and that they see a community unified in our efforts to ensure greater equality for our students. I hope they see a region that understands a healthy urban school district is helpful for the entire regional economy. And I hope they see a community working together so that Erie students reciting the Pledge of Allegiance in the future can grow up in a community where educational opportunities are not defined by zip codes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Before we get started on the public, I think I want everybody to understand that this board, I believe, is very well unified in believing in the same principles as probably every person in this room. And I can't speak for the board, but I can speak for myself in saying that I absolutely concur with Dr. Badams and the recommendations that he has made to this board regarding the passage of our 16-17-year budget. If anyone has the need to come up and address the board, if you have something more to say that hasn't been said, we certainly invite that. However, if you are in concurrence with where we're at and what we're going to do, you can always jot your questions down, submit it to the lady in the back there. We will certainly see to it that we have your questions answered. So, our 3-minute speakers this evening, please state your name and then print your name and address on the tablet provided at the podium there. Is Amar Curso here this evening? Is Amar here? Okay. No, that's a 3-minute also. Okay. All right, please.
My name is Christian Walters, and I am an underclassman, a freshman, so to speak, at Collegiate Academy. I just want to let you guys know that Collegiate Academy has become home to me. Not only to me, but the tons of students that attend that school today. It's become a home for the students who don't always fit into the other schools, who are too smart, too nerdy, and or they just didn't fit in. This school and all the other schools in this district have become a home. We've become a family. You can ask anyone I know that I love this school with all of my heart. However, due to this budget crisis, there's a looming fear that it won't be here in a couple of years. It so deeply hurts me to know that all of our hard work to get these diplomas would have to be restarted at another school with more people that we don't know, and we have to start completely over. And this is not to say that one school is above the other. We are all the Erie School District. We are all one family. Not only will this affect us underclassmen, but this will affect the generations to come. This will affect the classes of 2020, 2021, where these schools might not be available, and they'll have to go to other districts with people they don't know. I know this isn't a long speech, but I'm just trying to plead my case. Please, and I know you guys are, but do all you can to make sure that we have a school to call our own, and we have a school that we can call home. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Morgan Henderson. I'm an East High School alum. In 2007, I stood at this very podium to ask the board to give us back our student union. And so anyone who has taken part in student union, our student voices, I think what you call it now, thanks, you're welcome. So first of all, I want to address the former superintendent's lack of action and maintenance on the Erie School District budget for the years that he resided. He also put his full attention, time, resources into Collegiate Academy, which is definitely our diamond in the rough here in the Erie community. But there are plenty of students that were like myself, who were Collegiate Academy worthy, that decided to attend other high schools in the city of Erie. I want to first kind of, if people don't know what this system is doing, that wasn't already explained. There is a action called gerrymandering that takes place legally that our legislative body is able to do. And what that has caused is a lack of representation and underrepresentation for the Erie community. Right now, we have legislators that looked at the map of Pennsylvania and said, well, this person is not from there, they've never visited Erie, but they're gonna represent this part of Erie right here. So that's what we're dealing with. Some of these legislators have never visited, have never came, are not from here, but they represent our area. And so these constituents that we talk about, they don't want to upset and don't want to take money from. We're not talking about regular average citizens with their hand in government. We're talking about the wealthy elite people that these people are reporting back to and having to tie their hands with because they have already, dealt hands with them and are giving them hands with what they want. And so when they say constituents, they're not talking about regular citizens. They're talking about the people with the money and the people with the power back in their homes. I also wanted to present to the school board an idea that I also wrote down on this card about weighing what students themselves can bring to the table within their schools. We have Central Tech, we have students that have the ability to run school libraries, have the ability to run secretarial and hold office positions in the office and help with some of these duties and take that weight off our school district and that expense. And I also want to ask the community, the citizens, and the parents, what can we offer the Erie School District? Because it is not just up to them and it's not just up to the state legislators to figure out what we're going to do. It's up to us. And by all of us coming here today, and if we continue to put this type of effort into our community, a lot of things can change, but we all have to be in it together. Thank you.
I don't know how to back up Morgan's speech, but my name is Brittany Pope. I'm a graduate of East High. I'm currently a junior at Edinburgh University. I think my thing is where I'm coming from, what I think a lot of people are having on their minds is that if we do send our children out to these different schools where they are saying already that they don't want our children, I think that's going to cause a whole different problem. I understand with the money, it sounds to me like we need to be at Harrisburg. It sounds to me that that's where the problem is, that's where they're not, like it's like us being here isn't really doing what we need done. And just our children being sent out, and I say our children, my son is only 5, but I know I was a product of the public school, you know, and I wouldn't mind if my child did the same thing. For that opportunity to not even be thought of, just to think about sending our children elsewhere, it's just like how much earlier would they have to get up just to catch buses to go out there and just to be around people who might not be able to sympathize with them, who don't understand where they come from and different problems that they have. I've worked with children in the inner city schools and I've seen some of the struggles that they have, and I was able to relate with some of those things because of how I was brought up. And it was for me to be able to sit down and talk with them and understand that stuff, but for our children to go somewhere where they feel like they're not understood, it's going to be disruptive for the kids in the county schools, for other kids be coming in. It's not just that. What about the teachers who are here teaching our children now who have decided to take on, because I know it's hard. It's very hard just teaching other people's children when they are being bad and they are being disruptive, but I just really think that everybody is here for a reason. We all love our children, and if we do have to all lap up on the bus and go to Harrisburg for them to hear us and to understand that we love our children, we're here. If we do have to raise money for it, there's so much talent in the city of Erie. The city of Erie is just a heart. Everybody comes downtown for the block parties, and just to think that closing the surrounding schools where I know we have money coming in, it's just absurd to me. So I just ask everybody, like I haven't been coming to school board meetings. I'll be the first to say that I came here, but it's dire. Our children are in a dire situation right now where they need us. The violence, there's just so much thing going on right now that we do need to come together. And if Harrisburg is the place we need to be at, our children should not be going to schools with leaky roofs. Like my son, he'll be enrolling in Emerson Gridley this year, and just the thought of seeing some of the pictures of school is very disheartening to think that when I know my child deserves more than that. And like everybody has been saying, our zip code should not confine us to what we should be getting, because it should be an equal thing. And yes, it's 2016. Yes, we have a black president, but we are far from a post-racial society, and that's a whole nother issue that needs to be addressed. But I feel like our children being bused out to these county schools, it would be for the resources they would have, but I still think that it would still be a problem because of the unsaid problems that we have in this community that needs to be taken care of.
Thank you very much, Miss. And please know that we very well may have a donor who's willing to pay for buses for us to go visit Harrisburg very soon.
Good evening. I am Debbie Amatangelo. I am representing the Partnership for Erie's Public Schools. We are a 503c nonprofit organization that provides financial and community support to Erie's public schools in the areas of academics, athletics, arts, advocacy, and assistance. Since 2012, we have raised over $500,000 to support our students. For every dollar raised, 96 cents goes directly to the programs that benefit our kids. To the board and administration, we are here to help you in every way that we can. To the community, we are your link, your vehicle to help support the students of Erie's Public Schools. For more information or to make a donation or to sign our petition for fair funding, please visit our website at partnershipeps.org. And help us help our kids by remembering us on Erie Gives Day, August 9th. And since I have some time, I am a graduate of Strong Vincent. I would like to see everyone that graduated from the Erie's Public Schools stand, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tina Twitchell, and I guess I have a little bit different situation than probably 95% of the people here. My daughter Emily goes to Collegiate Academy, and she could be going to Girard, but she chose to go to Collegiate Academy because her experience at Girard was not good. And she got in the car the other day and said, "Mom, how do I go back to a school that was so bad to me? How do I explain that to her? That she may have to go back to a place that really was not a good place for her to be. At Collegiate, she can be who she wants to be. She's accepted that it's okay that in your spare time you want to read a book, and that you're not a sports person. She's made wonderful friends that like her just because of who she is. She wants to go to do art in college, and she would be a senior when you would close. So for 3 years she's been accepted at a school. For 1 year she would not. And they don't offer what she needs for as far as art at Girard. Mrs. Dudenhofer, I have to say, the art teacher at Collegiate has been absolutely wonderful. Emily, they wanted someone who was very passionate about her art to interview the other day, and so Emily was picked to do that. Her fear now is that her portfolio will not be finished so that she can pick a college to go to. And that is really a hard thing for her to understand why. They gave us all the names of people. I have contacted Ryan Bizarro's office, the only office I can tell you that actually picked up a phone and I got to talk to. I left a message at Park Wentling's office with my phone number, no response. I called Governor Wolf's office, also left a message with my phone number, have not gotten a response. I wrote to him, still no response. I called the Department of Education, sorry, all lines are busy, please call back. That is the message I got 5 days in a row. So I don't know what else I can do. If you can, I've tried all the avenues they told me to do, so if you could give me what other things I need to do, I would gladly be top of your chain to be on a bus and talk to someone. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My name is Sue Weber, and I'm from Mill Creek Township, and I'm here because I love your kids. I care about the kids of the city of Erie, and the other people who live in the county and the burbs. We better all get together and show we care about your kids and do what we can, too. About 4 years ago, I had a really different experience. I decided to substitute teach. I substitute teach in the city of Erie, Harbor Creek, Fort LaBeouf, you name it. And if you want to see a disparity in buildings, activities, everything, I've seen it close, up front and personal. It's not right. It's not right at all. And what I decided to do, and I did call the administration about it the other day, is I can offer you this. Next year, I'll give you $1,000 worth of subbing time free. I'll come in and sub for free. You know, I'll do whatever I can. If you want me to pull other people I know together that are qualified to sub-teach, friends, people that I know that are qualified and donate the time, I'll do that. If you have to cut an administrative position that I'm qualified to fill, I'll come in and work for you for free. I think that we need to get out of the burbs and come and rescue your children. And I will never forget the day that I subbed at Cathedral Prep today. I'm all over the place. And Prep had just painted the lockers. You walked down the hall and there were rows and rows of beautiful orange lockers. Then I went to Wayne. Every locker looked wretched. And I said, peeling off. I said, that's just not right. It's not right. These are all our children. They say it takes a village. The city kids are our kids too. And we need to do what we can to help. I'll do anything, let me know. And Dr. Badams and school board members, thanks for your service. Dr. Badams, I read an article by a newspaper reporter the other day, a columnist that was critical of you. And I just want to say that guy wouldn't last 5 minutes in your job. It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback and just run your, it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback and run your mouth, but you don't see any solutions coming from that person. It's not right. And you people, you are the solution. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, and people need to remember that. And you're all doing a marvelous job, and I thank you. Dr. Badams, people know he could go anywhere. He's qualified to go anywhere. He could make more money. He could have less problems. He's here because he loves your children.
Thank you, Mrs. Weber.
Thank you, Sue.
I don't think I need to even tell you what my name is, but it is Beverly Potts. Wow, after listening to East High graduates, I think that I'm listening to people that aren't quitting fighting. They're still fighting, and I think that's great. I wanted to talk 10 minutes, Robin, but you know, I didn't get it all in time. But Jay and board, I am 100% behind all of you. Wherever you go, I go. The second is the taxpayer, the tax base we have in the city. If we have people that aren't paying taxes because they're exempt for whatever reason, or if maybe they are paying some taxes, they're not paying enough. We got to make them pay more. Gannon and Mercyhurst and the hospitals, all those big places, those insurance companies, Allegheny and UPMC, they need to pay more to this school district. That's all I have to say about that. I do want to say that we are losing families to the county, and that's frightening. When taxes are bigger than we can, they move. They just move. They're gone, and then we lose a tax base from them also. And the houses are getting bad in Erie. They're run down, and we're not going to be able to collect as much taxes from them. So I want the city officials to consider all this. If they're anywhere in this building, or if they even hear this, I want them to listen. The other thing I want to tell these people in this audience, I'm an advocate for the public system. I've always have been. I've been in PTA for many years. I served in Wayne, and I served here in East. I graduated in 1960 from East, and I can tell you that there's nothing better than the public school system. I also want to tell you one thing, and I don't know how many of you are aware of it, that we pay taxes for the Erie City School System, and we pay taxes for the charter schools, and they're a private entity. They're not even underneath the city schools. They don't even run the same business as the school. What's wrong with this? I'm paying for a kid to go to a charter school, and I'm not paying to go to prep. I'm not paying the kid to go to Villa, but I have to pay for that kid to go to a charter school? I'm appalled. I'm sorry, I'm appalled. And I guess the last thing on my agenda is, when does the bus leave for Harrisburg?
I'm 82 years old and I'm slow.
God bless you.
It's hard for me to admit that. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. I don't have a lot to say. What I do want to say, though, is that I'm very grateful to have this opportunity. But one thing I want to know tonight, I've heard a lot of good things. I want to know if every one of people here are registered to vote. The vote is where your power is. I'm not sure the age. Is it 21 or 18 you can register?
18.
When you're 18 years old, go and register to vote. And then you can make a change in society and the things that are going on. That is very, very important. I don't know if I told you my name. I'm Reverend Laretha Johnson. I've been pastoring with my husband in churches for a long time. He passed away in 2009, and now I am retired, but I still run my mouth a lot. I'm sorry. My one thing and the main thing and the only thing that I really wanted to say, though, is are you registered to vote? And if you're not registered to vote, do register. That's where we have power in. I know we took religion out of school, and the thing that amazed me the most, when that child did the flag and said, "Under God," I said, "Praise God." America is still under God. I just want to thank you. And I don't know how many other people recognize that. But God is still our refuge. In this season and in a time of trouble, he still knows our problems, and he will be able to lead and guide us into the right path. I want to thank that whole panel. You're amazing. All of you. I was just so pleased. I think I smiled and grinned all the way. Just so happy for the opportunity to say thank you. I have 9 kids, have about 28 degrees among them, all employed, and none of them at this particular month, they call them the lucky 9, and they don't let their mom want for nothing. And our education is important. And just quickly, from the time I'm 82 years old, and from the time I was a child, all my dad and mom taught was school, 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 and church, church, church. We've forgotten where it is. So don't forget, you can't raise a child up without God, and you can't send a child to school and teach them if you don't have some charge over it. May God bless you all. And I want to get to preaching now because I think you've heard enough. Everyone that has spoken has been well spoken, and I've appreciated everything I heard. Like I said, I'm 82 years old, I have 9 kids, my husband passed away, but God has blessed us. And I want to see my 15, I don't know how many grandchildren I got great-great-grandchildren. And that's...
Good evening, Board, Superintendent. My name is Lynette Vanucci, 1156 West 23rd Erie. I've been coming to these board meetings for 48 years. My 2 sons entered school. I got involved at Irving in PTA, Roosevelt in PTA, and I was city council president. And I'm glad to see so many. I haven't seen this many people in 10 years. You could throw a water balloon usually and not hit anybody. So thank you for coming tonight. taking out music, taking out art seems, oh, well, you know. I have a granddaughter who's at Roosevelt, loves her school, but the two things she loves the most are art and music. And I don't want that taken away from her. And athletics, after-school activities, that's part of going to school. I went to East High. I'm a proud 1957 graduate of the old East. And I worked in this building for 17 years as an aide and an attendance officer. And I believe in public education. But I want to read you a list. Irving, Burton, Glenwood, Garfield, Washington, Columbus, Penn, Jones, Longfellow, Roosevelt, and Academy High School. What do they have in common? They're all closed. They're all closed. And it was difficult closing all those schools. And I know when Irving closed, our neighborhood was heartbroken. But my granddaughter went up to Grover Cleveland, didn't know anybody there, and loved it. They opened their arms to her. I can't say enough about Miss Fiorelli. What a wonderful principal, and the staff. And I say the same thing for Roosevelt. And I want every student to be able to love to come to school, whether they're in grade school, middle school, or high school. We have one big problem. Strong Vincent only has 70 people graduating in their senior class. Something's wrong. They used to graduate 200 and 300. When my sons graduated from that beautiful school, their classes were over 200. I don't know the answer. I don't want to see any school close. I really don't. I think we've closed enough. And I see the repairs on there. Roosevelt, two windows can't be replaced? Come on. I mean, I know you don't have money for a lot of things, but you can't replace windows? And that dump that I live near Roosevelt, it's going to fall down around. I mean, it's terrible. I can't believe that thing is still standing. It's boarded up, kids run in and out of there, and it's scary. It really is. But I look at Irving and Burton, those are real well-built buildings, and it seems they could be utilized by either selling them or utilize them in some way. I don't have the answers, but when I see young people begging to have their schools, I want to tell you also, I was in the grocery store on the outskirts, and a lady was talking to the cashier, and this is true, God help me. She said, well, my children go to Seneca, and you don't think I want those city kids out here. It was all I could do, because I wanted to throw something at her. I said, we don't want our city kids out anywhere. We want them in the Erie City Public Schools. Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting, but I was wondering if I could give you the money I donated outside for the lemonade and some lemonade.
Wow.
Yeah. How close are we?
Brian.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Thank you so much. This young lady set up a lemonade stand outside tonight's meeting and raised money to help Erie's Public Schools. Thank you.
So much. God bless you. It's delicious also. It is so nice. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Kiara Moore, and I'm 16 years old. I'm a sophomore at Northwest Pennsylvania Collegiate Academy. I have been in the Erie Public Education System since I was in kindergarten, and I have attended 3 of the district schools. Kids in this district are looked down upon because of the environmental and economic damages in our city. But we all know that regardless of the outside image of this district, within we have hundreds of students with so much potential. Erie schools offer many students the only opportunities they will be provided with in life. In middle school, because of the various extracurriculars offered at Woodrow Wilson, I was exposed to the musical program that would continue to positively impact my life throughout high school. I know that for me and for every other student involved in the arts, these extracurriculars are the only chance we have to explore the programs that are usually denied to city kids. If you remove these extracurriculars, you remove every student's chance of making a greater change in the community. Extracurriculars are critical for any solid education. I'm certain that if we all work together, we can show Harrisburg that the Erie School District is worth funding. If you close our doors, you ignore every student's given right to an education. This, I don't know how to say it, but if you were to close the high schools or take away the arts, this would be effective my senior year. And I have struggled through collegiate for my first 2 years, and I have seen my sister graduate from collegiate, and my mother and my uncle, and collegiate is a part of my family. And for me to even think about having to leave my senior year is heartbreaking, because I have struggled and fought so hard to stay there that I feel like all my work and effort would be wasted away. And as people were saying, those county kids, they don't want us out there. And that would just make everything much harder. That would be kind of like us not invading their space, but basically doing that. They don't want us, and we don't want to be there. So all I ask is please do what you can, and if there's a bus to Harrisburg, I want to be on it.
And Kara, I just have to thank you. I have to thank you for the sweet email that you sent me. I truly appreciated that. It made my night last night. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Ponser, and I come to you tonight as a parent of a child in the Erie School District. In fact, she also is a sophomore and therefore a member of the first class, projected to be displaced and sent to attend a school unfamiliar to her. Like her educators, she has worked tirelessly to perform at her best despite a crumbling structure with drafty, cold classrooms. She has tolerated accommodations for her education that those in other parts of the county and state have not had to adapt to. The gym that hosts the home basketball game has a warped floor. The part of the building where the pool is closed off because it cannot be maintained in a way that creates a safe and healthy environment for the students. Drinking fountains are turned off because of the lead pipes in the old walls. But beyond these conditions, a computer lab where not all the computers even work is contrast to schools in our area that provide iPads and notepads for every student. There are classrooms closed and locked because they are beyond repair. There is water damage and exposed asbestos. I pulled this off of Governor Wolf's official website. He says, quote, "Since taking office, I have traveled our state visiting schools, talking with teachers and parents and sitting with students in classrooms. I've seen dedicated teachers and committed students who simply do not have the resources they need. That's why my budget reprioritizes education in Pennsylvania and gives our kids the tools they need to learn and succeed in the 21st century." I pose this question tonight. Was he in our city? Was he in our schools? Where is Erie in his reprioritized budget? I almost have an answer tonight to that rhetorical question, because just this evening on the Go Erie website, Governor Wolf has said that while he sympathizes with the district, that they have tough choices, he suggests that there is so much the state can do for those facing the problems similar to Erie. There is also local responsibility and local burden for managing school districts. Our meeting is not over, and he has already passed the buck back to us. In February of this year, the governor announced his next steps in transparent government. The first on his list of priorities, the very first thing on his list of priorities was K through 12 education. Was the City of Erie wrong to assume the distribution of funding would be fair? Was the City of Erie wrong to think that our school district would be included in these considerations? Are our students wrong to think he doesn't care? Is public education in the City of Erie becoming a privilege, not a right? Where is the fairness of education in our city for the students of our city? As a community, we can create programs that dissuade drug use and poverty. We can create programs that intend to end violence in our streets, and we can create programs that place our students in summer jobs. But if we do not have adequate support from our state legislator and governor, we cannot fairly educate our students in our community. If our students, our sons and our daughters do not feel they have the same opportunity for education as their friends in neighboring districts, our community will fail as a whole. I leave you with this quote from a great founding father of public education, Mr. Horace Mann. He says, "Education then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is the great equalizer of the conditions of men, the balance wheel of social machinery." Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joshua Rizzo, and I'm a former graduate of Northwest Pennsylvania Collegiate Academy. I graduated back in 2008, and at this point in time, I've noticed the results of our school system, and I'm impressed. Like a lot of my former friends from school, they've become great, and they're important and respected in their professions and career paths. And I believe that our schools are actually very, very worthy of investment from from Harrisburg and whatever the legislation needs to be done. I
Could you
believe
move
that,
your mic
you
a
know-
little closer?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay,
We want to hear you.
I believe that our students coming from our schools have the potential to be great, and they can make a difference, and that this wouldn't be like cutting things here or cutting things there. Like they'd be able to create enough in tomorrow's society. There wouldn't be no more cuts. There'd be abundance. There'd be enough for school districts there and here, instead of like fighting in between the two. I don't have enough written down, but I'd like to just leave off that with I'd suggest that perhaps the subconscious mind can interpret the contents of the light that we receive from the stars and project that into our dreams.
Good evening. My name is Sydney Winslow, and I am currently in 10th grade at Collegiate Academy. Collegiate has given me opportunities that no other school could possibly give me. I have the opportunity to now join the Junior Erie Philharmonic because of my school music program. I am now watching my fellow students graduate with scholarships to different music and art to schools. I am watching all my ASL team currently take second place at nationals, and I am hopefully joining that team next year. I look back and I see my dean and my 2 associate deans sitting here supporting the school district, knowing that, and I'm proud to know that they are here to support us and everything that we have to offer. Collegiate is my home, and Collegiate is, like I said, has given me more than anything else could possibly give me. I don't know what I would do without Collegiate. When I was growing up, my dream was to graduate as a senior from Collegiate Academy. With the new school budget, it now seems impossible. This is what I want, and this is what I think all collegiate students need. Collegiate is like they said, one of the top 3 schools in the current state. And we just got a whole bunch of grants from Samsung to upgrade our technology. We received new carpeting in our hallways, and we are currently still painting our walls and fixing everything that needs to be fixed. In the videos, or the pictures that we saw, those were the only really terrible parts about Collegiate. Our school is gorgeous, and it's been standing for over 100 years. We block off the parts of the school that are dangerous or parts that are not useful to students, like the pool. We have a turf field in the back in our field, and it is used for multiple games and also for our wellness fitness program. I would hate to see not just Collegiate, but all the high schools closing down or being transferred to different places because of the Erie School budget. I would like to thank you all also for trying your very best and doing what you can. We know that you're trying, and I would like to say that I have a group of friends that would like to join you along with me on your bus to Harrisburg. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for giving the opportunity to me and to other people to speak here tonight. I would like to reflect on something that I believe Dr. Badham said earlier about the idea of cuts being like treating a trauma patient. Because if we think about education as the whole body, as the whole part of a person, and we try to assign different parts of an education to parts of the body, it gets very difficult to determine which ones are the most important. Or just the academic side of education, is that the brain? And what about extracurriculars? Is arts and music, are they just a blood vessel? And if so, can we agree that they're at least a major artery? Is sports alone, is that just a foot? You know, it's very hard to determine these things. And I'd like to propose that programs like STEM are maybe the brain of the body of education, and that programs like Model UN and FBLA that help students are like the lungs, and that music and art is like the heart of the body. And there have been a lot of numbers up here today, and more accurately, there have been prices and money, and trying to put a price on our education and parts of it just isn't going to work. We can't have a whole education unless we have all the parts. If we cut down our education to just academics, which I know is something that we don't want to do, we're not really educating our students. We're not giving them everything that they deserve. We can't cut programs like art and music and sports because they mean so much to people, and we need to focus on what the whole of an education can do for our community. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michelle Komisarski. I am the proud parent of a first grader at Grover Cleveland Elementary and the proud parent of a future Grover Cleveland student. At any rate, I agree with everything that everybody said. Our students are awesome. I think our teachers do the best that they can with what they are given. And I fully agree that our students deserve an equal opportunity. I'm gonna digress from that for a second. I'd like to say, first of all, I'm very grateful to Brian Polito for taking time out of your busy schedule. I think it was actually on your personal time that you came to talk to our PTA last year. It was, I think, the beginning of the year. I think that just shows the commitment that you have to our students. Dr. Badams, we don't know each other. I did stand in front of you last May fighting for our roof, but anytime that I've seen you in the public, your message has been consistent, that our students mean something and they deserve the best. So for that, I am grateful. You have been an excellent voice for our community. I'd like to ask for a second, though, a lot of legislators give us talking points before they are voted in. And what I would like to ask is how they are actually voting, so that I may determine what they really value. Tell me what you voted for, and I can tell you what's important to you. So if you could take a moment and please further educate us on action steps that we might take. So I guess my questions are, and then however you could field them, what have our current state legislators done to improve our resource situation? What in terms of money, how much revenue has their efforts generated for us? So are we actually seeing an increase from whatever they're saying they're doing or they are doing? Where can an average citizen find out records on the voting choices that our legislators are making and their stances on our particular issue? And who are the legislators that we need to contact, and how do we go about doing that?
If you could do me a favor, that's a long list.
Yeah, I know.
If you-
I guess my point in bringing it up is
Sure.
you may not be able to answer it all, but I think everybody in the room has to be aware that it doesn't just stop with standing at the podium. You are on our side.
Right.
So there has to be a next level to where we take it. So I guess that's really the point of my questions, and for people to be aware that talking points are just talking points, and we have to be a part of the process.
Sure. So we typically don't engage in a back and forth during the hearing of citizens, but in this particular case, I will let you know that, as I said before, your presence here tonight is important. The community showing unity and support for Erie's Public Schools and understanding of the issue that's in front of us is critical for us to make sure that our elected officials, and we have Senator Wiley here who has participated. He's heard every word of this testimony today, and I'm sure he'll bring that back to Harrisburg. The other thing we can certainly do, and I'm sure our communications folks will make sure that all the questions that everybody had here tonight that they put on paper will be answered online, and we will make you aware of what the next steps are. First step, come to the board meeting. Second step, we are actively planning a trip to Harrisburg to make sure that we have an opportunity for a show of support actually in the Capitol. And so we'll advertise that on our website. I'm sure we'll look to have that advertised in the media, and we'll make sure we try to get as many people as we can to accompany us on that trip. It's still in the planning stages. We have the end of school, and we want to make sure we do that before school lets out and we're all scattered to the wind. So if that's okay, that's my answer for now, but we'll make sure we get all the information to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Latasha Phillips, and I am a graduate at Edinburgh University. I was a bachelor level, and I am a master level as well. And so the reason that I'm just coming into this, because I think it's really important for all the community members to be involved. And my message is that we need to change our mindsets. And to begin with that, you kept asking to say it's not fair for overfunding schools to not get their funds. However, I think we need to change our mindset on that and declare that we shouldn't be asking for forgiveness or be ashamed for pursuing Harrisburg with the idea of reevaluating the current policies and laws, which are completely ineffective. And at this moment, they're overfunding some district, which in the same time is underfunding our district. We need to change our mindsets. The next point that I wanted to make is that as citizens of the community and of the state, we have to recognize that we play a significant role in this crisis. through the lack of our involvement over the years, as a parent, I know juggling being a sole provider of 2 children, and then going to school full-time and working 2 jobs, I didn't have time always to come to these meetings. But nonetheless, we see what the result is. However, we have to recognize that this is not always by choice that we're not involved, but it's by, we're deeply impacted by our societal factors, which are instances that many parents are working multiple jobs just to take care of their families because of there's not insurance for them, so they can only get certain hours at one agency and need to go to another agency to meet enough hours to fulfill for their family, which they still can't do. However, I think from this crisis, something beautiful has birthed, and that's all of us coming together, which you had mentioned earlier, and we talked about last Wednesday. We have to be able to stand together and to go to our legislators and say, listen, if you're not voting for us, then we won't vote for you, because we do have the upper hand. We are the people, we have a voice, and people do want to hear what we say.
Good evening, board members. My name is Mary Bell Abbott. I already signed the board. I want to speak to you from 2 different perspectives. I am a recruiter with Interim Healthcare, and as a recruiter, I created a relationship with Central High School to be able to cultivate and grab those students that are just coming out of your nursing assistant program, because it shows them that we, as a member of the community, care and want to help and want to give them something to strive and go for. And I'm sad at the thought of the possibility of that going away. It gave them something to look forward to and to strive for. As far as a parent, I am a parent of 3 children that attend Collegiate Academy. The senior, Lauren Abbott, which you heard speak for Voices earlier, and then I have a freshman and a sophomore. I'm sad at the prospect of having to seriously sit down and discuss with my husband, what are we going to do? Because realistically, the numbers are not lying. Even with our going to Harrisburg, how quickly will that change take effect? Will it stave that off enough that these kids, and soon enough, that these children will be able to finish and continue on in schools such as Collegiate, Strong Vincent, Central, and East? The discussion is bad. As far as the GE grant, I understand that they don't plan on staying on Erie much longer, but we really do need to approach companies like UPMC, LECOM, and Scott Enterprises, since there's so much of their businesses in the community that they should give back, and that they should be seen as standing for us as well and our kids. Are you posting on the website exactly when you're going to Harrisburg and everything, aside from sending it to the schools? And I know you don't do the back and forth, but
Yes, we will.
Okay. And also all the questions as far as which legislators we need to vote out this next coming election? Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak, but I really hope there is an opportunity to change, but I really want to know how quickly, even if we go down to Harrisburg, will that change effect?
I will answer that, because the reason this has such urgency and the reason we're looking at a trip soon is because right now, they are discussing the 2016-17 budget. Those deliberations are going to be taking place in earnest as June ramps up, because I have every reason to believe the news that I'm hearing is there's a real will in Harrisburg to have a budget passed by June 30th. We need to make sure that they're thinking about Erie when they pass that budget. And so I feel like we have 5 weeks at the most.
I have one more quick question. Is it possible to even just fundraise $100,000 in the community, put it out there, and pay for Robin from Good Morning America to to come and speak, because she would bring the national focus to it, and I think it's a subject and a topic that she would even address even without the speaking fee. Just an idea. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Noah Sheldon. I am a freshman of the 9th grade class, clearly, at Collegiate Academy. Now, the reason why I'm up here is not to repeat everything that you guys have heard about 50 times tonight. But what I am up here to talk about is the truth. We have students who have come up here today and spoken to all of you, telling you about how courageous we are and how ready we are to fight. But behind that, we're also afraid. And nobody has really remotely touched on that, and we need to admit it. And it goes far beyond the children, beyond the students. I think I can speak for many people in the room when I say that we feel fear. What will come tomorrow, the next day? What will come in a week, next year? And that's just human nature. And I'll be honest, I'm afraid. I'm filled with hope by all three of my deans at my school. I'm filled with hope with all of my classmates who speak up with me, with the model of Student Senate at Collegiate, Danielle, here standing and sitting with you. But I cannot deny that I am afraid. And although fear is just 4 letters, there are many meanings behind it, and this is one of them. Thank you for fighting for us.
Well, good evening. It's quite humbling to be standing in front of everybody and their bright, smiling faces as they've heard basically the same thing as Noah said.
Sir, could you please put the mic a little closer?
There
Thanks.
we go. There we go. I don't really have anything prepared, but I know what I want to say. I live in Waterford, Pennsylvania, and I am a proud student at Collegiate Academy. I didn't feel that going to Fort LaBeouf, though they are better funded, made them a better school. I was miserable when I went to Fort LaBeouf, and that's why I left. There isn't anything really that they have that Collegiate doesn't. It's so much a better atmosphere in Erie than it really is in these further county schools. It's a better family. They have community that comes together and support behind one common cause. Just a little bit about me. Collegiate's done so much for me. I'm a sophomore this year, and to think that I'm not going to be able to graduate from the school that I've wanted to go to since 3rd grade would kind of suck. I've known what I've wanted to do with my life since 3rd, 5th grade, where I've wanted to go to school for college, and Collegiate's been a stepping stone to get me to where I want to be with my life. And the possibility that Collegiate closing, or any of the public schools closing anytime soon, would be detrimental, because I know whenever I grow up and I meet my wife and we get married and we have kids, I want to send my kids through this school because it's changed my life. Yeah. I just got signed with the new Lake Erie Warriors. That's the new hockey team here. And I'm fairly certain one of the only reasons that I got signed to be on this team was because at Collegiate I have a 3.8 GPA, and they've really kept me through, kept my grades up. I've worked hard. I've had so many all-nighters finishing my homework to turn in the next morning for school, just because I love school. I love the atmosphere. It's gonna get me to where I wanna be in life. And the school itself, it builds character. Yeah, the concrete's crumbling. We did just get new carpet, which is kind of nice. The gyms are kind of dirty and everything, but I'm there till 5 or 6 o'clock every night because my parents own their own business. They can't just leave to come pick me up whenever they want to. So I'm there till 5, 6 at night, and I'll ask the deans for a broom, and I'll go and I'll clean the school by myself just because I can, because I love the school. So for everybody who can and will be watching this, there are more things than just money that go into a school. There's hope, there's family, and I wouldn't want to leave it all. Thank you.
I'm going to try not to ramble and be repetitive, but before I do start my main bit, I wanted to let you know that my family used to live in the city until we outgrew the house, and then we moved to Summit Township. I was in 5th grade at Joanna Connell, but I've been in the Erie School District all my life, and I'm proud to say that I'll be graduating from Collegiate Academy in about 2 weeks. But there are people out in the county that do care. I've seen the hateful comments, but there's many more people that aren't expressing themselves that do not think that. With that being said, I would like to go into short story. This Monday, as I'm sure you all know, Dr. Badams came and spoke to all the high schools. And after he left Collegiate, we returned to our class, and our teacher proceeded to re-explain some things that you had mentioned to us for some students that needed a little bit more. And he began to cry. And I know he wasn't the only one that day. And if anything positive can come out of this, it's the fact that the community is getting united behind it. I've been to other school board meetings, not many, I'll admit that, but the amount of people that were in here is a testament to how much we are willing to rally and get behind this. Another short story. This morning, actually, we were walking before homeroom, and a friend of mine who has been contacting his legislators since last September, when all this was made really public. I know it was public before, but when everyone finally started to catch on, he's been emailing and writing Harrisburg since then. And this morning, he brought in a letter from one of the offices that he's been contacting, actually asking him to stop. So, knowing that that letter has been sent, I know I'll continue to write Harrisburg, but I do want to know, let me know when the bus to Harrisburg is going, because that's going to be much more effective. Thanks.
Hello everyone, I am Joseph Makwa. I am a graduate from East High School and I currently attend Gannon University. First, I'm going to tell you where I came from. I came from a lower middle class family who struggled to stay above the poverty line. And just throughout my struggles and just everything, the Erie public school system has provided me a chance to step out of my social class and become something more. At least half the people that I grew up with, they're on probation, they've been in jail, or they've been shot due to gun violence. I haven't prepared much for this. I'm just trying to speak from the heart. But what I believe is that something that we shouldn't do is take away the opportunity that this community has for their children to go to college, to step outside where they came from and become something more is not the solution that we should be doing. That's my main point. All the macro stuff and the federal stuff has been addressed already, but I just want to emphasize that we can't afford anything to be taken away from our school district anymore. The teachers that helped me directed me on the right path to college are currently here and fighting for their jobs and for their students to become something more. And that's just all that I would like to say.
Hello, I'm Ray Dunsworth, 1814 East 33rd Street, and this is the first time I've ever addressed a meeting like this, so I hope I'm not too nervous. I'm a father of 5 kids in the Erie School District. 3 have graduated and gone on to college. 1 is graduating this year, and I have 1 freshman in high school, and I'm honestly considering what our options are. I also had a son who worked through college as a summer custodian in the school district. He can tell you some stories about the maintenance conditions. The pictures you see up there are not unusual. When I heard about this, I was initially skeptical because schools are always having budget crises and always asking for money. Don't we all want more money? But then I saw the charts and saw the patterns, and excellent work in the presentation, by the way, and I see that it requires some radical action. Erie, as they have mentioned, is the poorest district in the county by far, and we have the highest needs by far in terms of English as a second language and special needs. And some of our public policies over the years and decades have pretty much intentionally concentrated the poor and the immigrants in the city for reasons that seem good at the time, but then the result is that we get higher expenses in our education. And it seems like a lot of the expenses that you showed in those charts are forced upon us. Saw the pensions, wow. In the private sector where I work, most of us have 401ks, no pension at all. And your pension is driving your costs really high. I know Common Core, for good or ill, it took 2 teachers out of the classroom at Collegiate who were teaching into administration, so it increases your overhead, another thing that you're forced to do. But it seems also clear from the charts you presented that you're required to do things, but the people requiring you to do some of these things are not willing to pay for what they're requiring you to do. To use an old illusion, if I may, they are asking you to make bricks without straw. You've proposed the radical solution of closing all the high schools, and I sure hope it doesn't come to that because that would be a terrible thing on many levels. But I urge you, since they're doing this to you, trying to make you do, increasing your expenses with mandates that they're not willing to pay for, look at any other radical solution you can find, whether it appears to break the rules at all or not. They say he who pays the piper calls the tune. Well, you guys are the pipers. They're trying to call the tune. They truly need to pay the piper. Thank you.
Hello, school board. My name is Olivia Kelly, and I'm a freshman at Collegiate Academy. I would like to thank all of you in the school board for working so hard to correct our district budget issue. I appreciate how much effort you have put into determining a sensible solution for all of our schools. I have a slightly different story than the majority of the students attending Erie high schools. From kindergarten through 8th grade, I attended Mill Creek schools, specifically Bell Valley Elementary School and James S. Wilson Middle School. And to be honest, it was a no-brainer to decide which high school I wanted to go to. I've been academically focused my entire life, and I knew I wanted to attend to Collegiate Academy ever since I heard rumors of the nerd school in middle school. So my goal was to be accepted into this prestigious high school, and I didn't even give a thought about leaving my home district's high school, McDowell, behind, no matter how many of my friends decided to go there. I knew that it would be worth to pay tuition to attend Collegiate Academy because of my goals. I've always known I wanted to attend a prestigious college as well, and I knew collegiate was definitely the stepping stone to be able to get there. So, being the academically focused student that I was, I had previously become advanced in mathematics in middle school, and I followed that by taking Calculus BC this year, which is my freshman year, so I knew that this wouldn't even be an option at McDowell for me. I was even told by a McDowell guidance counselor when I was looking at high schools that they would not be able to cater to my academic needs, and I would have to repeat courses I had already taken early on in middle school at McDowell until I could dual enroll my junior year. However, at Collegiate Academy, for example, I will be able to dual enroll this summer leading up to my sophomore year, so collegiate has really helped me live up to my academic goals. So if Collegiate Academy and other Erie public schools were suddenly ripped away from me and all of the other students in this district, I would lose all of the academic progress I'd made here at Collegiate, and all of the goals that I would set would not be attainable. Going back to McDowell would mean giving up all of the friendships and academic progress I've made with the students at Collegiate Academy. So please, I'm begging the legislative representatives in Harrisburg and community members, and I know the school board is on my side too, to take time to truly consider the impact taking away Erie high schools would have on all students. So, school board, thank you for fighting for our schools.
Thanks for listening. Hey, my name's Dan Laughlin. I'm running for the 49th State Senate District seat that's currently held by Sean Wiley. I only came here tonight to listen and support Dr. Badams. I think he's done a great job with this district. But I have to ask everyone, it's not the school board's fault that we're in this budget crisis. It's our legislators' fault. And although I don't blame all of that on Sean Wiley, I do blame a fair amount of it on him, because he's a Democratic senator in a Democratic district with a Democratic governor, and what I'd like to know is, where's the cash? You know, he's been 3.5 years in there, and he's telling you up here in his speech, you know, I'm fighting for you in the trenches. Well, you're losing, Sean. You're losing, because this school district is going bankrupt under your watch. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone's patience and comments. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board for 3 minutes? Is there anyone else? Not hearing. We move to the reports of committees and liaisons. Anyone on the board want to report? Mr. Spagle?
Is this for reports or for comments? Because I have a report.
Oh, yes, we also have, this is a report, reports of committees.
Well, I'll save my other comments for later when we have comments,
That's
but
great.
for our report, as far as reporting, I'm the community liaison, and on a brighter note, we were able to take the school into the community yesterday at the Booker T. Washington Center, where we held our Better Together, which I felt like, and Nancy was there for a while, was probably one of our best attended Better Togethers. We had quite a few parents, and we had at least 150 kids that came through. We were able to show them summer opportunities and also do activities with them. The teachers were there, they volunteered, which we really appreciated. Yes, they did some great activities with them, and they gave them footballs, basketballs. They did a really awesome job, and I just want to let you all know, and Daria, that it was really appreciated, and I'm pretty sure the community appreciated seeing that the school was willing to come and meet them where they are, and I think that's very important that, you know, that they see the presence in their neighborhoods, and we were able to feed them as well. So I just wanted to say thank you to the families that showed up, and thank you to the staff that participated and made it a great event.
Thank you. Mr. Spangle.
I just want to say thank you to the Grover Cleveland PTA. I know they recently went down to the PTA conference, the state conference, and they received an award. I can't remember exactly the name of the award, lady, so I do appreciate it. That was in reference to the 21 buckets, how they essentially were able to, through their efforts and their driving force, because these women don't stop for much, able to get us, granted, we didn't have enough money, but somehow we found enough money to prevent my child and their children from being dripped upon. So I appreciate the effort that you all put into it, and good job with getting that Pennsylvania State Award. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spade. Any other reports from committees? Okay, not hearing. A motion to approve the committee reports?
So be it.
Mr. Brzezinski seconded the motion by Mr. Petrunger. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have no unfinished business, so we move forward to items 6 through 649, I believe.
Mr. Chairman?
650 and item 7.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move we approve item 6 and item 7 on the agenda, that being the new business of the school district and the vocational new business.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Petrunger. Is there a discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Item 6.11 about the real estate tax collection schedule change. Could we briefly have Mr. Polito elaborate a little bit on what that involves?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Polito, would you like to address the board regarding the tax collection schedule?
Yeah, this was a process that the board actually started back in 2012, 2013, when we moved back the date when we started sending out our tax bills from January, 6 months into our school year, to August, when the rest of the school districts in the county and across the state send out their tax bills. So at that time, it was the intent to start bringing our tax cycle in compliance with the law and in line with all the other school districts across the county and state, where we would have a 2-month discount period, a 2-month face, and then after that, we would go into penalty. So in order to start that process back in 2013, we started by extending out our discount period. So we had a 3% discount in August and September, 2% from October through February, face from March and April, and then the 10% penalty would start in May. So last year, when we started to have some cash flow issues and we were looking at possibly eliminating our TRAN, the board authorized a committee to take a look at this. And again, our first thought on this was to bring us in line with the rest of the state and county, but also improve our cash flow. As we started digging into this, we identified 3 areas of the local tax collection law that we're out of compliance with our existing cycle. Right now, we don't charge a penalty until 10 months into the payment process. State law requires us to start doing that within 4 months. The tax collector must settle the tax duplicate no later than January 15th. We are doing that a year after the deadline, and the tax collector also must settle the current year's duplicate before we send out a new one to start collections, and there's actually a 6-month crossover on those. So we put together the committee to take a look at a way to phase into the current process, and our number one priority became getting in compliance with state law. So what we have recommended and what's on the agenda tonight is a 2-year phase-in, starting with the 16-17 school year, where we would have a 2% discount in August and September, face from October to November, and then starting in December, we would have a 10% penalty, and that's just like the rest of the school districts in the state. In order to provide some relief for the taxpayers that will be affected by this, we are going to phase in the installment payments. Right now, our installments are April, May, June, July, and if a taxpayer elects the installment method, they can make those payments at face. So next year, the installments will be in November, December, January, and February, and this will give taxpayers that had been paying their taxes at the 2% discount from October through February, the opportunity to pay at face if they elect the installment method. And then the year after that, we will move those installments back to be in line with the rest of the county at September, October, November, and December.
Thank you, Mr. Polito. Any questions for Brian regarding the tax schedule?
Thank you.
Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Harkins to approve items 6.0 through 650 and item 7, including 7.01 through 704. We have a second by Mr. Spiegel. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Petrungo?
Yes.
Ms. Shenley?
Yes.
Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mr. Castillo?
Yes. We do have a separation request. Under item 8.01, the acceptance of the proposed final budget for the 16-17 year pursuant to section 687A1 of the Pennsylvania Public School Code.
Mr. Chairman?
Which is going to require a separate vote requested by Mr. Brzezinski.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Harkins?
I move we approve this motion.
All right, we have a motion that we approve. We have a second by Mr. Spiegel. And the voice vote, or is there any discussion first?
Yes, Ms. President?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify for everyone here, this is a deficit budget. It's not balanced.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I'd like to enter a few of my comments onto the record.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Harkins.
We all take an oath when we are elected to this office, and we all take it very seriously. And what goes with that oath is for us to act responsibly. And just because the people that populate the responsible positions of government in Harrisburg have not been acting responsibly, not only by neglecting us financially, but by failing themselves to have a budget on time numerous times, it's tempting to want to retaliate or to say, well, we'll be childish too, but I just want to say that it's important that we all act responsibly, but even so, as the superintendent has declared, we're backed into no other choice but to stop the cuts and take a stand. I want to just make a few remarks. We're 70% state funded, and as was alluded to earlier, some changes began in the 1990s. Among the harsh partisanship that began to take root then, some political decisions were made, and we're suffering under those, the seeds that were sown then are being reaped. Until about 20 years ago, the Erie School District could depend on fair financial treatment from Harrisburg. All school districts could. In the mid to late 90s, Governor Ridge, with the state budget surplus, froze education spending. He did not increase financial support to local school districts. We had to make up 10% annually in our budgets. Next, the draining of tens of millions of dollars began from us by the creation of charter schools and paying for those charter schools by subtracting their costs from our subsidy from the state. To get that charter school law passed, deals were made with the legislature to, number one, raise pensions, including those of the legislators, dramatically increase the annual share that we and all school districts in Pennsylvania had to pay to fund that. This sucked more money out of us. Governor Rendell came in and recognized the developing crisis. His initiative, known as the Costing Out Study, began to address the inequity by closing the gaps for urban school districts like ours. He gave up to 40% increased subsidies to districts having a high percentage of charter schools. In 1910, the political earthquake that brought the Tea Party to prominence was ridden by Corbett when he became governor of Pennsylvania. He came in during our 2010-11 school year when Jim Barker left. Corbett's staff erased all state education budgets from the state's computers before he even took office, erasing funding and formulas for the funding. He immediately cut $1 billion in state contributions to all schools in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, $1 billion, as he developed his approach to education funding. Suddenly, then, Erie lost $18 to $20 million, including Governor Rendell's costing out subsidy increases and the charter school reimbursements that he had given us. If not for the charters and the pension fiasco and Corbett's massive cuts, the Erie School District would have no funding crisis beyond the local tax exemption problem, which is substantial, but it's not the heart of our problem. Going into Corbett's final years, some separate deals were quietly made with some school districts, not us. Those districts had been hurt, and the deals were made in hope of Corbett gaining enough votes to get reelected. If Barker had not left us when he did, he could have shone the spotlight on the problem. The fault for this funding crisis is not Jim Barker's or any local individuals anywhere. The problem is systemic. Benign neglect by Harrisburg of us has become acceptable. This problem cannot be solved locally. We have too many school districts in Pennsylvania, period. We have too many legislators in Pennsylvania, period. This allows enough of them distant from us, removed from direct accountability to us, to cripple us financially and put us in this position. Barker and Rendell had a good working relationship. They believed in what each other was doing. Barker brought in substantial grant money, most notably the GE grants. Every year we were audited. Every year we had public review. When we had money, we spent it. We spent it on programs like dual enrollment, full-day kindergarten, or it would have had to have been returned to Harrisburg and spent by other districts instead. Later, when we found it necessary to close 3 schools and make steep cuts, it didn't mean that we were cutting bloat. Again, this can't be solved locally. Anybody who wants to continue to think so is in the way of solving it. We have already cut too deeply in the last several years. We should not have been forced to close the 3 schools when we did, among other things. For these reasons, even though I hesitate and consider it somewhat borderline irresponsible, I have to agree with the superintendent's recommendation to approve this budget even though it is out of balance on our end. So I support the superintendent completely.
Thank you, Mr. Harkins. Well said. Mr. Brzezinski?
Definitely well said. I separated this so that everybody could have an opportunity to make comments. I made my comments last week at the committee of the whole. I will not stand for another penny cut. We're going to take this to Harrisburg, and we're going to make them listen. Our kids are that important to us. I mentioned earlier in our meeting that I had the opportunity to go down to the beach today, and I saw a bunch of kids. And then I saw a couple teachers, and I saw the environmental people from the peninsula teaching them all these things. And then I realized, in a way, they're our kids because they came from the Wiley Charter. Our kids can't afford to get buses to go to these kind of places. something's terribly wrong. And Harrisburg has to listen so that we can start doing the things for our kids that have to be done. I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr.
Rob?
President, because I usually speak, I'm going to just say a few words. I'm not going to say much. I'm just going to say that I agree completely with the history that Mr. Harkins just spoke. I believe wholeheartedly that we are standing behind a man who is making a decision to make a stand here. And so, although I agree with Mr. Harkins that this isn't what I would usually choose to do, it is something that needs to be done. It has to be brought to the attention of the people in Harrisburg that what are we supposed to do? I'm not going to repeat it 5,000 times. That's enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fabrizi. Mr. Spagle, oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I don't look at it as something that we have to do. I look at it as this is the truth. And if you represent the people, you need to tell them the truth. We can't balance the budget. It's a deficit budget. We don't have money to pay for things, and that's the truth. That's it.
Thank you, Mary Frances.
Just real quick, Mr. President, you know, I saw this young lady earlier and a couple other women crying. It's pretty bad. And sometimes I know we go back and forth and we get emotional. I know you do. He damn near cries all the time too. If I was his job, I would too. It's very emotional. It's our children. It's just crazy. But we just don't have the money, which we know. And it is the state legislature. It's everybody here agrees with everybody that's there. Everybody's preaching to the choir, so we appreciate that. And as one of the speakers said, remember this when you vote next time. And I think somebody said, who should we not vote for? There's a lot of people we shouldn't be voting for. The people that are representing us are the ones that should be getting us the money. We don't have enough money. You know, just like Dr. Badham said, sure, give us $45 million. What can we do with $45 million? We would. I don't even know. It's crazy. It's just crazy. But it does bring up the larger issue of metrolizing. We really need to do this. We don't need. How many school districts are in Erie County? 13. That's just. If this was run like a business, and I know it's not, I fully understand. There's no way that you would have 5 purchasing or 13 purchasing agents. You don't do that stuff, or pick it, whatever, custodians, whatever it is. We don't need that, and this hopefully will bring to light the larger area. If we are going to succeed as a community, if we're going to prosper as a community, this has to be brought to the forefront of the larger issue. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Spagle. Ms. McNair.
I would have to agree with John and everyone else who spoke. Unfortunately, we do have to pass an unbalanced budget, which is of no fault of our own. And I feel like Dr. Badams made it very clear that a lot of people he spoke to, there's this chatter of, it being an issue with the school board, but it's actually not our issue. It goes above and beyond our head. And this is not an issue that we can solve at this level. And I'm glad that everyone that spoke, Mr. Polito and Dr. Badams, was able to speak and make that very clear tonight, because a lot of people were misunderstanding what the issue is and what was going on with this budget. And I hope that everyone listened tonight and listened very well, that we have to take it a step further, because it does not end here. It did not begin here, and it's not going to end here with us as a school board. And I just want to make it very clear that I am definitely not in favor of closing any school or taking away any programs. It's just, hearing the kids speak tonight and having kids of my own in the district, just the thought of closing anything else or losing any programs just disheartens me. Our students deserve the best as well, and we need to make sure that we keep this momentum going. We had a lot of people here tonight, and we definitely need to keep the momentum going, even if we do have to bus up and go down to Harrisburg and show them who we are in Erie and make our voices heard down there in Harrisburg as a community, I think that would be awesome. But just know that we're doing our very best with what we have, and we don't have enough. And it is of no fault of ours that we don't have enough. And we need to figure out, and we are going to figure out how we can make it happen for our students in order to provide them with their civil rights, which is an education.
Thank you, Ms. McMahon. Anyone else have any comments this evening? I have just one or two. The budget that we are voting on this evening is one that's very important. It's sending some clear messages. One in particular, we're going to shift the cost of education back to Harrisburg where it belongs. It's time that Erie stands up for itself, as we have done here tonight, and say, enough is enough. When the Governor Corbett cut the $1 billion, as Mr. Harkins earlier spoke of, we weren't speaking up as much as we should have or possibly could have. The fact of the matter is, with demographics being one, secondly, the political environment in Erie, with the Republican-controlled legislature as well as the executive offices, we would have fallen on deaf ears. I don't place any blame on our current governor. I think that Governor Wolf is doing everything he possibly can within the scope of his ability to see to it that there is funding. He got cut by about 50% of what he initially proposed. And that came back from the legislator saying that you are not able to get the monies that you need to adequately fund schools. The second point I want to bring up this evening is that the vote that we are making tonight is predicated on the $4 million plus deficit. Even though this is a preliminary final budget, I am possibly an eternal optimist in hopes that Harrisburg is going to hear and heed the message that we're pleading for. And that's to come up with the funds necessary for us to continue operations without any additional cuts to our students, to our teachers, to our facilities. And we need to make sure that that message does get to Harrisburg. Our local legislators, I have to say, have been very supportive. So this goes beyond our physical geographics. So somehow, some way, we need to be able to send the message to the representatives in Philly, in Pittsburgh, in Allentown, in everywhere that we can, to say that you cannot pass a 16-17 budget without considering the school district of the city of Erie. Okay, with that, we have a motion to approve, and Mr. Brzezinski seconded. That was item 8.01. A roll call, please.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mrs. McNair?
Yes.
Mr. Petrungo?
Yes.
Ms. Shenley?
Yes.
Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mr. Casilla?
Yes. Thank you all. Our next item is 9.01, the approval of the meeting minutes of April 20th. Do I have a motion to accept?
So, second?
Okay, Frank, Mr. Petrugger, Seconded, Mr. Brzezinski voted in favor. All in favor, this is a voice vote.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, the approval of bills and payroll.
I move we approve them for payment as presented.
Motion by Mr. Harkins,
Second.
second by Mr. Brzezinski. Voice vote, please. Roll call.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Petrunker?
Yes.
Ms. Shenley?
Yes.
Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mr. Castillo?
Yes. Motion to approve the report of the secretary.
So moved.
Second?
Oh, there was no report?
No
so
report.
We could just pass it?
There's no report, sir.
No.
Okay. So we move forward to the award of bids, being none. Is there any other matter to be brought before the board by members, Mr. Harkins?
Ed can go
Mr.
first.
Brzezinski will flip a coin.
Just want to take a minute. Gus Picardo was a big part of our school district, is a big part of our school district still, and he's been here for a long time. It's a sad day today. He lost his son, 48 years old. He's quite a guy. It was just a quick little blurb in the paper today. It'll be announced completely tomorrow. But I just want to send my love and sympathy to him. His son was a great little guy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brzezinski.
Mr.
Dr.
Casella?
Adams?
I just have to fulfill a promise that I made this Sunday. I was welcomed into Greater Cavalry Full Gospel Baptist Church this Sunday, and as I was leaving, I was accosted. He actually grabbed me by the sleeve, a young man in a motorized wheelchair, who implored me to publicly thank Robbie Fabrizi for helping him on a day when his wheelchair battery had died and he was stranded on the corner on 26th Street. And it was Mr. Fabrizi who helped him, a pretty heavy piece of machinery, get it across the street. And he made me promise him that I would recognize him publicly. And so, Robbie, thank you on behalf of Antonio.
Let me just say, it's not something that anybody on this board wouldn't have done. The guy was on the corner with his wheelchair wasn't working. He had two little girls couldn't move it. Any one of us would have done it. So I mean, that's all. That's all.
Good job.
Thank you, though.
Anyone? John, I'm sorry.
Robbie recharges all of our batteries from time to time.
Yes, he does.
I just want to make a remark or two on the record about the passing of Jack Palanci. Jack Palanci, as many people would remember, was the longtime sports editor for the Morning News, the Erie Morning News. He used to humbly declare that he was a fourth-string guard on one of Lowell Drake's Powerhouse Academy football teams in the 1940s. But he made many comments about the Erie athlete, individuals through the decades that he covered sports. He had many insightful, opinionated columns that sparked interest in the athletic policies and events of the Erie School District. But the reason he deserves a mention is he was an active, influential member of the Erie Stadium Commission, which was a creature of the school district in the mid-1970s. And he played a leading role in making the public aware and maintaining public support for a massive renovation of the stadium that took place in 1977. So Jack Palanci was a good guy, an Erie guy, and an alumnus of the Erie School District, and a contributing member to the Stadium Commission at a time when big changes came about. So I just want to acknowledge the contribution of Mr. Jack Palanci and note with sadness his passing, and a big thank you for what he did for us all those years.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else for the good of the order? Before we adjourn, I want to say a special thank you to all of our audience here who have borne about 4 hours of a school board meeting, which is not an easy task. And I want to thank you all. Give yourself a hand for a job well done. We appreciate it very much. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion and seconded, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.